Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, June 23rd. Call to order at 6:34 p.m. We will jump down to the review of the memorandum of the multi-year agreement with the Franklin County Housing and Redevelopment Authority for the administration of the Housing Rehabilitation Program. Item 7 on our packet. Hi, Brian. You're welcome to, come on up. And we'll,
put me right ahead.
Yeah. We'll let you go back out into the heat, or welcome to stay and enjoy the AC
It's nice in here.
for a bit.
Well, thanks for having me again.
Sure.
Brian McHugh from Franklin County Regional Housing Authority. I sent in a sort of a summary of different options. This is a continuation of the discussion we had last time about entering into another agreement with you to service your the program income that comes back from CDBG funded housing rehab projects that we've done throughout the years. So if you have any questions about I try to spell this out, what program income is, what miscellaneous income is, just to sort of, that's our responsibility to determine when a payback comes in, what it's classified as, and if there's any questions about that. But basically, in a nutshell, program income is something that's money that's recovered if a grant has closed out less than 5 years in the past, or if we've loaned out money from your housing revolving loan fund, which was from paybacks from previous loans. If we loan that money out, and it's solely that money, not a combination of that money and current grant money, that's program income also. So we would classify that, and it would have to be used where we have to do lead paint remediation on any house built before 1978 if there's no children there, regardless of who lives there. It can add on there's a cost burden to that, having to de-lead houses that have elders in them, for example. You just want to get a roof or a window. So we're able to sort of just respond to what people's immediate needs are through that program. So there's some options on what kind of structure you want to have for this program. Whether or not you want to run it just like we run the Housing Rehab Revolving Loan Fund, which basically the rules and regulations around that are whatever the current grants are in the state, we follow those rules. That's the easiest thing to do. But also you may want to consider, recovering some of the money. You might want to recover all the money. That's one of the options you have. Any money that's considered miscellaneous income can go back to the town as discretionary funds. We do have some towns that do that. We send them everything that's paid back from loans that are over 5 years from grant closeout. Some towns want to take a percentage of it. So I think we talked about it when Brian and Scott were meeting with us a few months ago about possibly, taking a percentage of the money back in town and then having you set up a discretionary fund or some sort of fund, whether it's an affordable housing trust fund or whatever it is, to be used for specific things. And that would be up to you. That's not something you have to. You can just take money back now, put it into account, and figure out what you're going to do with it later. It's not something that we have to discuss tonight. So it's more about whether or not you want to take a percentage back of the money, and what kind of terms you want on the loans that are going to be going out, and what sort of income level you want to consider for that program. Or the Housing Rehab Revolving Loan Fund, which has the CBG rules on it, benefits households that are under 80% of the area median income. We had discussed the possibility of going to 100% for the other fund. You might think, well, that might squeeze out some people that are more needy. We did talk a little bit about having a criteria point system where we try to identify the most needy households. And one of the biggest sort of factors there is how far under a household is from the cap, on the income cap. I won't go into the weeds too much, but let's just say, for instance, if the income level is $100,000 and a household earns $80,000, they're getting 20 points. You get a point for every 1,000 they're under. So it would still, even if you allowed 100%, 100% of the area median income we're likely to still hit the people that are at the lower end of the income level, because that's where they're going to get the most points, and it's just designed that way so that the most needy households are addressed.
So, have you guys thought about what way you think we'd like to go with that? In terms of the, usage of, or how we direct the money coming back?
So I like the idea of establishing taking back the discretionary, but establishing the secondary fund that we would like to use and have you all run, obviously. But for modeling it similarly to leaving it in there for the same purpose of home improvement, having those funds be there, whether or not we take all or a percentage and put it in there. I'd actually like to see all of it, because we're not in a position where we're reliant on those funds coming back for discretionary to use in budget setting and turning it into free cash and needing it in that respect per se. I mean, there's moments where we feel like we're pinched and we have to, but the dollars and the speed at which they come back are not enough to say that this is a reliable source of income that we could put in our budget process every year and say this is this is a balancing mechanism for that. So
Right.
I'd like to see as much of it as we can stay in that vein, but under the control of the town
Managed
through the regional housing, managing it under something that's not under the same guy. It's a little bit looser on the restriction. I like the idea of we don't always have to do a full home reno if there are things that they couldn't do because of those restrictions. Like you said, perfect example. They've got a couple of broken windows, but all of a sudden it triggers. They do a lead test, and those window casings have lead on it, and the two people living in there are like, we are not having kids living here. We're going to be in this home for the next 20 years. Let's just get the windows fixed, please. Those type of things.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that. I don't know. Oh, and the other piece of it is I like the idea of putting it at 100% for the median and having the point system, because I don't want to choke anybody out from having access to it. But should we have a lean time where not many people are applying, and you have the capacity to have somebody that is in between that 80 to 100%, at least they have a chance at gaining access to some of that. The other question was the maximum award. We haven't talked about that yet.
Right.
And I'm not sure. I haven't come up with a dollar amount for that. Currently
It's $70,000 per unit. Okay, so and we can keep it at that. And I will just say that this can be renegotiated. It's not like we're signing up for 10 years and it's just the way it's going to be. If we end up recovering money and putting it into our account, that's your account essentially, and you found a need in the future. Let's say we happen to have $200,000 in there, and the town needs 30,000 of it to make something work. There can be a way that we can sort of, I won't call it renegotiate, but just have these sort of outs where if it's miscellaneous income and truly discretionary, not from the revolving loan fund, but the stuff that's in miscellaneous, that you could approach us about tapping into that money, basically. Yeah. And there probably would be like some kind of servicing fee that we'd have to do that, like we do with the other program. But
personally, I'd like to see as much of it that can go into a miscellaneous income fund go into that, which would maximize the amount of flexibility we have with that, rather than putting it back.
Yeah, our intent from here on is to, if it has to go into revolving loan fund because it's defined as program income, it does.
Right.
But unlike what we've been doing with our previous agreement, we want to have a separate account that is this. We're going to call it something else, like Erving discretionary fund or whatever it is.
Right.
And so then it doesn't take on the identity. I say that in here. It's one of these things where it takes on an identity. If it goes in that account, it isn't designated as a revolving loan fund for housing rehab, then we're going to try to put as much in there as we can. And we might use all that money, if you decide to use all that money for the same purposes, but it just will allow us to have, we might be able to reach more people, because someone he doesn't, just wants windows or needs a roof or something like that and doesn't trigger everything else.
Sorry, I'm going to keep going if you don't mind. I have a couple
No,
other things
no,
I want
no,
to
go
sort of
for it.
ask.
Finish 'em up.
If I heard you correctly, and we even talked about this in the last meeting, we can set up the fund. I think you just said it a few minutes ago. We can set up the fund without having all of the details of how to expend or utilize those funds. We can still work on that over the next
Yes.
short bit of time
Yep.
in order to iron out those details about how to draw, any of those questions we talked about, but the concept of we want to, if it falls into that criteria of miscellaneous, it's over the 5 years, it's been closed, all of that.
Yeah.
Let's funnel it in there, and then we'll figure out exactly how we want to draw it out with if it's 100%, median, all of that, what the criteria are, what the use is, what the maximum is. Personally, I'd like to, for keeping it simple and for the oversight of it, model it as closely as we can to the housing rehab, minus some of the restrictions that we want to be able to lift, to keep it as similar as possible, so it keeps that process flowing. A couple of small tweaks on it with the higher threshold, and maybe we want to change the amount that somebody could take.
Right. And we would prefer that, truthfully, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's going to confuse some of the contractors we work with,
Yeah.
and it's just how we run it. We
Yeah.
we do the inspections, we do the cost estimating, we do the work write-ups and all that. So
Yeah, I think keeping all of that language, all of that practice the same makes sense, but just tailoring it for the maximum access
Yeah.
and utilization. I will stop yapping
Without
now.
regurgitating, I'll say I'm in alignment with Scott on all of that, as that flexibility allows us to apply common sense to a lot of things. One concern I have, which we may want to revisit with the cost of everything, question I have, is a $70,000 ceiling adequate? I mean, if certain older houses that need a roof, depending on
Yeah.
things.
I mean,
So-
go ahead, Jim. if you
No,
want.
I'm just going to say, it may become
Yeah.
restrictive.
We're not, the thing is, the $70,000 is in place because we tend to be doing all the things that a house needs, and so if we're looking at it as essential repair, an essential repair program, we're not going to be necessarily doing one house, we call it the HRA special, where we're doing siding, windows, a roof, electrical, plumbing work, and all that, and that does oftentimes go over the $70,000. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like if we're running a program that's designed to just hit those essential things, we might not be up against that. It'd be nice to have that cap. I mean, we're going to try to, as we always do, try to stretch the money as far as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have multiple applicants, then it might be someone might want certain things, but in order to, to get hot water and the 3 people, we do, electric hot water heaters instead of one, deluxe, air source heat pump unit. So we try to look at that and say how many people can we serve. So applying some common sense to it, basically. That's what we try to do at least.
So
Go ahead. I'll wait.
there are a couple things that, the one question that I had, we talked about, obviously this agreement, we can keep modifying it, doesn't not forever. We choose to move 100% of the non-program income into this fund and have it managing, to be redistributed and continue the projects. What are the stipulations around changing that? So if at some point, the financial decision is that we no longer want to put 100%, or how long, if we do this for, say, 5 years, then there's still money in that, then we have the discussion on redistributing it or moving it out of that or doing whatever again at that point, correct?
Right, and so what we have in the current or now expired agreement was that there was a reprogramming clause in there that's, we, for it would cost like $500 to take the money that's in the revolving loan fund that's earmarked for housing rehab projects and put it into another CDBG eligible project. So so it'll be similar to that, where it's like we would have the clause in there that we'll call it reprogram the money out of that fund that would be used for the home improvement loan fund.
Discretionary, the
Discretionary
Ervings, yeah,
fund.
okay.
And then if you identified something that you wanted to use that with, it would just be a process that we would go through. I'd come before the board and we'd do something formal to transfer that money. We probably, if it's something that you want to do on the town level and it is in the discretionary fund, it's probably going to be a process that results in us cutting a check to you out of that fund.
I think also, though, to follow up on that question, you were saying, like the modifiers, the ability to go in if we said after 3, 4, 5 years of transferring every single dollar that qualifies, that
Yep.
could move into that, up to 100% of all of that.
Right, 3 years from now, we say,
If we
you know
say
what,
we don't
we'd rather
really need to
do
put all of
70.
that, we want to modify that. We don't want to move 100% of it. We want to move 50% of it into there, and 50% of the money goes this way.
Yes, that's how we want to structure it, so
Yeah.
that you're not like,
Do we need
Hand-tied
reopeners in that? Do we have
What-
like in this language of a contract, this agreement? Do we have reopeners that would allow us to just do that in certain intervals or annually?
Yeah, the way it's set up right now is that it's not, there's no timeline. It's not like once a year you can do it. We're gonna, as far as like terminating our contract, there's a
Right.
clause for that.
Sure.
And the only thing that's annual on this agreement is that it renews itself every year for up to 10 years. Then there's a renegotiation again. But we can have it'll be much like the reprogramming in the other revolving loan fund agreement, whereas if you approach us at any time, then we'll go through the process of reprogramming or reallocating that money to something else. So we will have something in there that allows you to do that, and you don't have to wait for the anniversary date of the agreement.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Scott?
Yeah, I just want to. I think so.
You want to be assured that I know I don't think the language is in there quite yet.
Yeah,
for
I
that,
didn't
so,
see it.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
So it's
So
Well, yeah, and the language around term of evergreening, but not renegotiating, then why have it even renew and not just be signed for that period? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
wait, say that again, Jake?
In the term section,
Yeah.
it's 12 months, that then evergreens for up to 10 years, whatever number we put in there, then we'll renegotiate. Why is it evergreening and not just signed for that period, whatever that period is? If it's not a renegotiation opportunity every 12 months, then what's the purpose of evergreening for those years instead of just being 10-year, 5-year, whatever we say? Because it's not an opportunity, the way it's written, to reevaluate those numbers and those
Yeah.
decisions every 12 months and say, oh, we did it for a year at 100%, we think now we want to move to 70, we want to adjust to 100% instead of 80% of median or whatever, right? A few tweaks to it. If that's what we're doing every 12 months, it kind of makes sense to me to evergreen, but have the opportunity to have that conversation. If it's just automatic as is, then there's no purpose to being only 1 year. Why wouldn't it just be signed for the number of years that we determine? Because the renegotiate's at the end, so that just doesn't make sense to me. But that's
No, that's a really good point. I
more
really
of a,
thought
what's the
about it that
purpose
way.
of that? Yeah, what's the purpose of it instead of signing it for the period?
Right.
So-
Collaboratively, I think that I understand what you're saying. If we say, hey, we need to revisit this and change something,
Yeah, I'm
you
going
know,
to try to
that's
come up with
open
some
to it.
language for that and go through our council on that to make sure that it's like it's the spirit of it's there. I mean, the function of it and the process is there, but just know that I understand what you're trying to do here, and I understand the spirit of it. I just don't know what the
Yeah.
details are going to be quite yet.
right?
I think the question that I have, I'm not sure when you answered it, we're talking about once the funds are in there, reallocating it to another use, and I'm not sure that's the question I was asking. What I'm looking at
Right.
is section 3.3, where you have to check one or the other. Deposit the proceeds from repayment of all, into non-program income funds into the home improvement program fund. Or the second one is return to the town a % of those proceeds of non-program income loan funds received, deposit the remaining into the HIPF. And what I'm saying is that percentage. If we were doing if we had the first one checked and we want all of it to go into the HIP,
Yeah.
and 6 months later we went, that was a mistake, we wanted to do 50%. How often could we, what is the mechanism to change that? It's not reallocating what's in the
Right,
home
right.
improvement.
Right, it's the new
It's the
inbound.
rate. It's the rate of new inbound.
Right.
Is that annual? Is that?
I don't think it has to be annual, honestly. I mean, because it could be a
mean,
need,
yeah.
an immediate need for reallocation or repurposing, or the terms of, take either going from 50 to 100% or 100 to 50%, whatever way you
Yeah.
decide on it.
So maybe some language, if you're going to talk to council about making some modifications, I think adding some language that allows for, whether it's a 60-day, 90-day, 30-day, whatever notice that we want to, make a modification to that, and then we come to the table and talk through it.
Yeah.
That there's that's just built in, that it doesn't need to be on a timeline or a signature or renewal.
Right. And I don't anticipate the board coming,
I don't either.
2-3 times a year. It might be once every 2 or 3 years, where
Right.
they say,
Right,
"Oh, we want to
right.
make a change," but I just want to know what the mechanism is, what the answer is when we're doing that.
Okay.
And I think even if it makes sense to have language that's not more often than once a year or twice a year, that's fine.
Sure.
I doubt we'll be
That's
doing it, but just
yeah.
in case.
I
Yeah.
actually was going to say, in fairness to all parties, limiting the number of times that the town can come
It's
back
totally
to the
I know. I do
housing
deal with
authority and be
25.
like,
I deal
"Oh,
with-
we want to do that again. We changed our mind. Can you move it to 47%?" Just.
That's
Well, thank
better.
you, because I deal with 25 towns.
No,
Understood.
I'm okay with putting a cap, not more than twice annually or something like that, if we had to change our mind or we found a need that it had to
Sure.
restructure it.
So circling back, 3.2, what I heard and I'm aligned with was we want option 1, which is deposit. Let me go back to 3.1. Where did I go? Scrolled too fast. Well, option 1 is the program income, right? So program income coming back, proceeds go back into the program, not to us.
Yes,
So option 1
keeping that going as long as possible.
is what
yes.
we're looking at. For 3.3, we're also looking at option 1 at the moment,
At the moment,
which is 100% of all non-program coming back goes into the HIPF, Home
Yep.
Improvement Program Fund.
agreed.
Okay, so those two cleared up. 3.11 was highlighted, and this was just the whole acknowledging our contractual responsibilities, liabilities, and all of that. I think obviously we'll have to have that looked at,
Yeah, but
when this goes through council, but, that's fine. No concerns there, right, at the moment?
no, none.
And then section 4, which is the
Yeah.
term.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone has a take on that. I question the need for the evergreening and year to year. It's a question that should be asked, I think, of councils. If there's a reason you have that in there that way. I don't know what we want to do from an outset, but I was thinking 3 to 5 years on the first pass at this, since it's new to do the HIPF piece. But definitely not a year or anything.
You have town meeting approval for a 10-year period.
Right, for up to 10.
Yep.
Right. I just mean not initially, in terms of overall. Because
thinking about it on the term, I don't care if it's a 10-year because we have that ability. If there's a clause in there that allows for reopeners periodically, so it's not.
there's a 120-day term clause in there, so it's not,
Yeah.
Jim, any take on term?
I'm
Thanks
also.
for the clarification on, I was looking at 12. That seems high. I typically wouldn't go more than 5, but, if we were comfortable with 10 and a reopener halfway through, again, there's that flexibility that we're talking about in language to sort of throttle.
Why don't we start at 5? And then we can always, I mean, in 5 years, we always renew it too. It's not a thing that we're anticipating ending.
Right.
More
No, it's
just an
a,
opportunity to go through it all again and see
it's
where
a,
things
it's
are
a
at.
very, very good program. And a lot of people have benefited from it. Myself, when we were a younger couple struggling, we took advantage of these programs, so I am in favor of it. I would be in favor of 5 and
Yeah.
looking forward to renewing it then, but taking
In the past at it.
a
Things will change in 5 years.
100-mile view at it again.
Sure.
Or
So
10,000.
let's pencil in 5, and under Appendix A, there was a, do we want to use the funds for other than home improvements, question mark? At the moment, I'm not hearing any
No.
interest in that, so I think we're saying no. With the exception of maybe the second clause, right? If we choose to, it can be negotiated. And the handful of questions at the top, right? Limits, which we talked about. I think we said there's a little back and forth there. Maybe 7D for now. Obviously, it's another item that we could revisit if needed.
Yeah.
We said we were looking to go, and this kind of jumping down, I think, to Appendix D, 100% of median, and would be looking to see some sort of point system that's going to give preference at lower end, obviously.
Mhm.
The what are the loan terms, right? There's the various versions along the way that have been done. And that's one of the things we need to determine on the HIPF, right, is what terms we want to do. Is
Yes.
it the 1/15th forgivable? Is it all the different models that have been there? Is it non-forgivable, nothing due on sale?
I have the easy one. Just model whatever is currently being offered.
By HOS? Yeah.
Okay.
To me, it just, it
That-
keeps
keep
continuity,
it
it's
in-
consistency, and, it's one set of parameters that everybody understands. Literally, the only difference in my
program it
mind
comes from,
is
right.
we have less restrictions on our money.
Yeah, I mean,
More
that's,
restrictions on the HRA, there's less on the HIP.
right,
That's-
we're a little concerned about putting that out there, that the different terms, only because if we're in a situation where we have money in both accounts and someone,
Well, I want this one, not that one.
yeah,
Right,
but I got
yeah.
this
I
deal,
understand.
why'd you get that? Why'd you put me in
Yeah,
this
I'm
account?
with you.
I think if they should
Same as
be
the OHLC,
exact.
I think is
Okay, perfect.
ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't need a bartering system between the two
Yeah,
of them of
right.
which one's better at the moment.
Okay,
Playing
great,
them off of each other.
great.
Again, let's appeal to common sense here.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think those are the major items in there, and then we have the few questions. Was there anything else on this for this round here?
This time.
No. So as far as the non-existent agreement that we have that's expired as of like last year, getting that signed through council, knowing that we figured out that we want to do 100% of non-program funds into the HIP, we can do all of that now, and we can get that contract, that agreement re-signed and go through for the 5 years. And still not have all of the nuance pieces vetted of how to expend those funds out of the HIP. So we can still have a little bit of time, but it reauthorizes the agreement to have the existing agreement re-upped. So you have a working document. Am I understanding
No,
that correctly?
that would be great, actually, because we can iron, like, if something comes in, if you sign the new revolving loan, it's going to be what's going to go in that fund is going to be program income only.
Right.
We'll set up. We'll pull off anything that's not program and non-program income. We'll set aside, and we won't expend that until we iron some of this
Until
stuff
the
out,
other one is ironed out.
Right. And some of the appendixes, we can leave those as like draft, and they're not finalized, right? That are relevant to the HIP fund, and then
Right.
finalize those.
Yeah. Just know that we'll
Later.
we'll hold aside that until
Yeah.
we have.
Okay.
That's all I was hoping, is I don't want to drag out the revolving loan fund accessibility without an active agreement any longer than we have to, while we work out the details of how to expend our non-program fund in the HIP.
Agreed,
So.
agreed.
Right, agreed.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that gets us to that point, and then there's a few, there's some of the wording and some of the appendixes that we need to kind of think through and finalize about how we spend the HIPF. But that we'll work on in the coming months.
And if you'll allow me to speak with Brian on this, about this, that sort of a summary of the things that you're talking about tonight as possible, I've written a lot of this down, but I want to be sure about it. Is that all right, Brian?
The notes, yes.
Okay, the notes on it, because I just want to make sure that what I'm hearing from you is sort of
We'll have minutes and then obviously the
Yeah.
video too, so yeah. And
Oh,
then
right, I
if
can watch
there's
the
anything
video.
to clarify from that, yeah.
It's
Brian
riveting
can
stuff.
definitely-
Everybody
I
watches
know,
it. Yeah,
that's what I do in my
It's
spare
always fun to
time.
watch yourself again.
Yeah.
10,000?
yeah.
10,000?
Is that what
Oh,
that
is
A
it-
night,
is it-
yeah.
Yeah?
might be a little lower
maybe-
in summer vacations and
The
everything.
heat, maybe it went up.
Maybe.
So.
Okay, so,
So next steps are you will capture what we spoke of this evening. At some point, we need to get it off to council so they can take a look at it before we sign anything, correct?
It's already been sent to council,
Oh,
but if you'd like them to
just-
review these,
Just any
Revisions.
of the revisions that we made, and they were minor, but if there's any questions coming out of that, and then we can get
Great.
the revolving loan fund piece signed, and we'll put that back in play.
so are we carrying this to a future date? Or are you taking a vote?
yeah, I think we should carry it to the next meeting, to probably to July 7th. If you need longer, let us know to get the bulk of it in terms
Okay.
of, and we obviously need to hear back from council, so
Do you need me back on
Tentatively.
July 7th?
not at this
Okay.
point. Just
No.
send some responses on the couple items that we talked about.
I'm just wondering, though, if we want to have two different documents, I guess I'm thinking about. I don't want to change things up too much, but just so we have the revolving loan fund in place. We don't have people that are knocking on the door right now. We do have some money in there, as you know. And just, yes, the agreement expired, but we had an open grant until
Correct.
now.
Right.
And so all that money had to go into the grant anyway, so we weren't using it
Right.
as it's, solely out of that fund. It just went
Except
into
we
the
just
grant.
closed that one.
We just closed that. I know, that's what I know. That's why, we got to get this
2 weeks
done.
ago, yeah, so it was 2 weeks without it.
Yeah,
But I think there's probably two paths, either, and I'll leave it up to what the Housing Authority, HR would like to do, is just, either you can break it out into two separate, and so there's one that's the program income, there's one that's the non-program income, or leave it alone and just reference that some of the appendixes are,
yeah.
to be finalized, and don't include them in the signed document. And then when
Yeah,
we've signed off on those appendixes that apply to HIPF, then we add them in, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the nuance that's not vetted
Yeah.
out. The bulk of the contract itself, there's a few tweaks we just talked about today, and that's
That's
really
really
it.
it, yeah.
So let's just have one document. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that's not,
Right. And then we'll just note at the time of signing, it can just be noted, appendix, et cetera, to, forthcoming.
yeah, like
And
it's
then once they're done,
conditional or
we'll sign.
whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So based on that, do you then feel comfortable approving the document as amended? And we'll remove those appendices and make the changes that you all talked about tonight?
I see what you're saying. So
With the
you're
term.
talking, so
that
just
way
to
we can
run
get it
recap
in-
real quick.
Get it,
3.2, saying all program income
yeah,
stays with the program. 3.3,
100%.
100% of non-program goes into this new
HIP.
discretionary
Yep.
HIPF. We're fine with 3.11. Term 4, we said 5 years,
Yeah,
and we'll not worry about this year-to-year basis language. We'll leave it be.
Yep.
And beyond that,
And we're going to remove the appendices that are,
that are anything referring to the HIP.
well, so
And,
Appendix
you know-
A stays because that's. Wait a second. That was a comment I forgot. There's 2 Appendix A's. There's use of housing rehab revolving loan funds, Appendix A, and then there's Appendix A, use of the home improvement program loan funds.
No, that's,
So the second Appendix
That's
A
our
will not
fault.
be part of what
Right,
we're
well-
signing.
Right.
Um,
Take that one out for now, and that'll
right.
become a new appendix when we
Right.
finalize it.
sorry about
And
that.
then Exhibit B, I think, is the program income version,
Mm-hmm.
which will stay, and then
Correct.
Is it C will stay as well? Yeah, C will stay.
Yes.
So basically, the second Appendix A and Appendix D will come off
Okay.
to be amended and adopted at a future time.
Correct.
And is that it? Is there two Ds too? Yep, there's two Ds.
Jeez.
The first one is program income.
Yep.
The
so-
second one is not. So the non-program income one will come off.
Correct.
Which makes sense. I get you're modeling a copy of the other appendixes to be the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
non-program
just-
appendixes, so I get it. And then E is fine. So basically Appendix A2 and Appendix D2
Right.
will come off for now. And
We were
become
thinking
probably
A1
E and F
and
later.
A2.
Okay. So are we good with that as amended?
Yes.
Yep. And can I
Uh,
just
go
ask one favor? Instead of saying 5 years, can you just give me a term end date?
Sure.
Like a
June 30, 2010.
of June 30, 2010? No,
You mean 2030?
2030.
2020.
You're going the other way.
2030. Let's go that way.
Add a few more years to
You
that.
went back 15 years. I'm like, wow, that's impressive. I want
Start doing
15.
this
I want
before.
15 years back too.
Oh my goodness.
June 30, 2030.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
One more final question before we make a motion on that one. Do you want anything in that motion that references 311, because we have not actually heard back from council yet, to make sure that there's...
I mean, that's the only thing about an adoption tonight. We haven't heard back from council at all.
Right. I can read it and it all looks fine to me, but I'm also not reading it as an attorney because
So why don't we just talk through what that final draft looks like that we do want to sign? Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
We'll carry it for the 7th.
Okay.
We'll let council know that we'd like to hear back on that. Don't worry about the new appendixes that
Yep.
we're going to continue to work on. And then we can adopt, if everything's good, we'll adopt as we discussed tonight. If there's anything to discuss, we'll discuss on the 7th.
that just means if anybody,
If it comes up between that's a concern, we'll make sure you guys are aware as well and send it your way just in case there's anything you need to give us feedback on. No need to attend unless there's something controversial we need to
Okay.
hash out.
Yeah, that's no
I don't
problem.
think it'll be anything.
and I think if anybody does
Significant.
start to apply, they just let them know that
It's
those
just a
funds will
week or
be
so out,
available
it's
after
not-
July 7th. They can wait another
Week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I'm sure the application process is longer than that, probably.
Oh, it's, yes, way longer than that.
So I'm sure we're
so
fine.
we won't delay any of the new applicants.
No.
So we'll table that till 7th.
Okay.
Okay?
You got it.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Discussion regarding the speed concerns on Moore Street. Welcome. Welcome back.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Um, they don't have a copy of the
I was
memo,
just
right?
going to ask the same question.
Okay,
Have they
all right.
received your
Before
memo
I
that you sent
recap
to us?
this, and I don't
Okay,
wanna- yeah.
fair enough.
I mean, it's work that the team did, so I don't know if you want to recap it or we can, it doesn't matter.
I think the people at home, if they're watching, don't know this either, so I think it just needs to be announced.
Yeah. No,
think he's
I mean,
asking, do you wanna
do
recap it or you want him
or
to?
you want us to? I mean, the team did the work, we didn't, so, but we can
indifferent.
speak to it, doesn't matter, so it's
Sure.
up to you.
You go for it.
All right. So update since we met last. Explored various different options. So reached out to District 2, Mass DOT District 2, traffic engineer to look at a speed limit review of Northfield Road from Sem Drive to north of the Senior Center and Care Drive. On June 6th, they confirmed receipt of the request and agreed to work on it, but we don't have any further update from them yet on that. We looked at creating stops at various intersections off of Moore, at 7 Drive and Forest, at Park, at Central, and then Leicester at West High. The federal manual on uniform traffic control devices, it's experts who know this stuff, I'm just reading it, actually explicitly prohibits the use of stops or yields as speed control devices. So using them for the purpose of speed control is prohibited. So it's not an option from that standpoint. So then we looked at the traffic planning department at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, and kind of taking this the next step. How could they help? And Glenn McCrory and Glenn Johnson Musad, our new community planner, and Officer Gordon, along with Brian, met with them. So they've put in the traffic counting that we've asked for at Leicester and Moore to begin measuring volume, speed, type. And we don't have the data yet, but it should be coming soon.
It was taken down today.
It was, yeah, so
Okay.
soon.
We saw it.
Soon from today, yep. And then separately, we're gonna look to schedule vehicle turning counts for the intersections that are of concern, which will give us different data on that. The counting requirements for that is a work in progress. I don't think we've defined when we want to do that or how.
There's specific times of day during work weeks and then on weekends that the counts have to occur to meet.
They have criteria for how
The state
how
does.
and when the
Correct.
state does. Okay, so we're not defining that, but they have to be done according to it. So that's the next phase that we're asking them to measure.
Correct.
That data together might indicate some use of a stop sign for
Right.
other reasons, not speed specific. So we'll see if that takes us anywhere in terms of stop signs at the intersections. And then we've also asked the FERCog staff to look at Leicester and Moore at the layouts, traffic calming treatments. And they did work with us with sidewalks and ramps and curbs back in 2018, 2019.
Now, who is this that we're talking
The
about?
Franklin Regional Council of Governments, the FERCog. Yeah.
DOG. Okay.
So they worked with us in 2018, 2019 when we were doing some sidewalk and crosswalk and curb work for pedestrian safety. So, we're looking to have them help partner with us on this as well. Some of the ideas about different ways to do traffic calming and painting and those various things are the types of topics that conversation is starting with.
So are any of us to be involved in any of this? Or is this going to be decided and then come back to us?
So, we welcome your input. I don't think we're at that stage yet to kind of join in and partake with it. I think there's probably going to be some opportunities once FERCog has actually reviewed the area that we can have in those meetings. If you'd like to be, or one or a few of you would like to join those conversations, I think we can schedule that and invite you to be there to hear what they've found, to hear the dialogue, partake in that conversation, to what opportunities might exist and how we can move them forward. Obviously, you can also rely on us to come back and continue to have these dialogues and let you know how is it progressing, what options are we finding, and what are we thinking is the right paths. But welcome your involvement too.
Are there any, is there any foreseen timeline that we're looking at, or is this just completely up in the air yet?
So, like we said with traffic counts, the first round, hopefully we'll have that data very soon. Then we have the turning counts to do. I don't think we know yet how long that requirement takes to fulfill, to get that data. Hopefully within a few weeks we'll be able to get that answer, at least on the schedule. And then in terms of the planning work with looking at the layouts with them, I don't know if they gave any timeline on when they think they can start getting into
They're
that.
prioritizing the speed and traffic counting data right now.
First, okay.
Right. Because that was the first piece that not only do you all need that, but the state needs it as well. So that is the priority. And if they remove the equipment today, that suggests that it's gone back to the office for the analysis.
For the download, yeah.
Right.
And the
That's what we were assuming. They were
Right.
hooking it up to a computer when they were there, so.
Right.
probably download it right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the planning and the layout reviews will also be informed by that data, so I'm sure that team is waiting for that data as well to begin that process. So not a lot of firm, like, here's a schedule for next steps yet, but a lot of them are in progress that I think will start to inform more defined schedule of at least we can say, okay, now we can talk about what the findings are, and then at this time we can talk about what
And
to do from there.
would you keep us abreast of what's happening, please?
Absolutely,
That
absolutely.
would be very helpful to us, because people will be coming to us asking more questions.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you're the only person that we have a phone number for.
oh,
So whether it's an email address or
Oh,
however
there we
the
go.
communication should happen, it can be given to Bets,
Miss Willie's the hot
and then
one.
we can
It's perfect.
have that communication. Otherwise, you're the person that will be receiving all of it.
okay.
So however you want that to happen.
Sure. Yeah, we can also, I can give you my email as well.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
want to leave
Yeah.
emails with
You bet
Bets, and
mine.
then we can
We can do it.
then we can
Bets can
distribute
take it
that
right
update. I think we can commit to updating at least once or twice a month, and kind of as we hear,
That would be great.
and then when we have enough to be putting it on our agenda and having some conversation about what we can do, where to go, or just kind of what findings are, then we'll let you know ahead of time, obviously, as well.
That'd be great. Kids are out of school now. I'm concerned.
Yeah, a lot more traffic, which is great. We want the park to be used. So, yeah. I mean, it sounds like, from my understanding of what you all submitted, it sounds like stop signs are still a maybe. It sounds like speed change is still a maybe, and some traffic calming measures are also still a maybe. So it sounds like nothing's been taken off the table, but at the same time, we need some more data to move forward. We all need some more data.
Yeah, I think stop and yield is probably lower on the list of probability, but it's still not out, right?
Yeah,
So
the,
that's-
the stop and yields are going to, they would only be able to be used if there was another allowed usage of them. So the number of turns, when that study
say
gets
the turning
done,
counts.
that's, and so we're not doing it as a calming or a speed measure. We're doing it because another study proved it to be effective
Which
for
would be
those
very nice.
intersections. And lo and behold, people have to come to a stop at a stop sign, so therefore, side effect, we get to slow
Go
the
figure.
traffic down.
Right,
But we
right.
can't just arbitrarily say, we want to put 3 of them up on this quarter mile to stop everybody.
Right.
We have to
Yeah,
have
that
the
makes sense.
justification behind it. The only other suggestion I was going to make is, what it sounded like is, if there's a way, like when we do, it's going to take the FERCog and the state and everybody, nothing moves, we used to say snail pace, but it's like glacial speed. It's very slow.
They are melting.
They are melting, so it's, glacial times 2 now.
They came out. They came out FRCOG without their.
They're
radar
faster
like-
than the state.
Yeah.
They're a local agency. That's a little bit quicker. That's, pretty quick turnaround.
Right. It's
No.
like us for COG state.
Right. No,
I
all
like
I
the
was
other
going
way
to say
around.
is,
As
when
I
we
said-
do have enough data compiled, is it possible to have like a rep sit down and review with some of the community members to say, here's what it is. Do you have feedback in advance of the, digest it, see it, pose your questions, come to the meeting, and then have a conversation?
Oh,
As
yeah.
opposed to hearing it at the meeting for the first time and then say, now you have to come back for another one with all your questions.
No, I think.
So
we
I
should
think
keep
if we
those
just,
updates and funnel that out to them. Absolutely.
Funnel it out as soon as we have it, so you have
Thank you,
time to
Scott.
digest
That
it.
makes sense to me.
Um,
I could always turn up the hysterical mom thing too. If you need me.
We'll have a little button, be like, we need more.
Right, yeah. I just think if you have it in advance, you came with a well thought out packet of information and requests and options that you wanted us to look at. I think harnessing that same energy on when the state and the FERCog come back and say, based on the actual data that we have, here are some options, and now start to mull those over. That may bring out a whole new slew of questions and opportunities and options. I mean, I was throwing around ideas with Brian. I really like the idea of the painting of the traffic calming. And I said, we have a new town planner. We could probably look at something, with the tech school and, make it a project that some students work on as just we can get creative. But having a forum for people to chat and say, based on what we know is allowed and not allowed, and at certain sections, and because there are going to be things that they're going to come back and say they're not warranted, you can't do them. But based on what you have, here's what is open to you, and how do we utilize that the best we can.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I shut that ringer off, and I don't know why.
All good.
Yeah.
I think this is great because, like I said, we've kind of got the whole community in this, and so we're getting a lot of these questions and phone calls.
Yeah.
And it's we've been telling folks we're going to get more information. So we've definitely they heard us. We're trying to figure this out. We need some data. You see, the
Yeah.
devices are here measuring data. So I think.
Well, and if, like you said, you leave your emails and we can send out those updates. We can send you a copy of this memo that has what I paraphrased that the team's worked on so far. When we get traffic counts, we can send them to you. Some of us have seen them a few times. They may look like just a bunch of numbers and not make a lot of sense. We can do what we can to try to help explain them, but we can also, you'll have them ahead of time, like Scott said, and then when we meet as a group, or if you are able to partake in some discussions with the FERCog team about what options are out there, then you'll have that information ahead of time too.
We're not locked into anything. We just want to slow down. So, I mean, we're pretty flexible on that, I think.
Totally.
And that's why we went into, trying to find all kinds of things so that we had options,
Yeah.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate the engagement too. I think we said it last time, but the partnership is great to have the feedback and not just we have a problem, but trying to help with the solution is great. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, definitely, really appreciate y'all's time. And
You're
coming
welcome.
back to
And
us.
summertime is tough, so I know things get slower. It's already slow, but sometimes they get even slower. But hopefully we're meeting at least by late July, early August with the next update and
Well, hysteria
what's
works.
happening. If there's no movement, we will give you a call.
When my son got hit by the car, whoever was running the town, Rose at that point, kept saying to me, well, we've tried with the state and they won't do anything and they haven't. And I was like, okay, but I said, it has to happen. And he said, but, and I said, tell me who to call. I'll get hysterical. And he said, oh, no, ma'am. So,
Well, it can be very frustrating, and it's a tough one to use as an example. But the bridge, was a tough sell and a long time to finally get traction to get the barriers put up. And regardless of people's opinions about the aesthetic change, they've served the purpose they were there for. And it took a long time to get there. I'm glad I was able to be part of it finally coming together. But it was 20 or more years of advocacy and people being, part of that advocacy to be successful. So it can happen, and advocacy helps. So thank you.
Definitely. Well, thank you all so much for your time.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it.
thank you, guys.
We'll keep in touch, and we'll keep having the meetings as we have more data to talk through.
Do you want
Have
me
a
to
good
leave an
night.
extra chair? Do you have any other duos coming up?
No, but you can leave them. It's
You can
totally
leave
fine.
it, yeah.
Totally fine. We'll take care of them later. Thank you. So same for us. Next steps, we'll just keep kind of keep us posted, and we'll check in
Do you want me
probably
to
every couple
keep
weeks
the
or
topic
so.
on July 7th?
If you have something by then, if you have no more than just traffic counts, I don't know that just send them to us, but there'll be nothing really to talk about. So it's probably a later in July before we'll have it on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think.
But you and I'll keep obviously up to speed on it, and as there's enough to bring it back, we'll put it back.
Got it.
Okay. Review of the special town meeting warrant and proposed amendments. So,
It's only one amendment, right?
Only
yeah,
one.
Yeah, only one.
Ish, yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
So there's interest, is that how I understand it, basically? Or there's some additional funds from the Arch Street borrowing in a separate account,
Right.
Right.
which if we don't deal with that as well, we don't get to close it out, even with
Right.
this. So my recommendation, and I think Deb's recommendation, was to just add that to the amount that we're reappropriating for Church Street and close them all out. So a bunch of red lines to move $5,065.11 more into the not from capital improvement funds
Correct.
Got it.
and reduce them accordingly. So make it as a floor amendment. Best thing is probably to have the moderator read as amended,
Yeah.
just because of all the
Right.
number changes are really just look really busy and obnoxious
Right.
if you try to do them
And
afterward.
Can we bring a whole bunch of copies of it?
Oh, sure.
Because we have it in advance. I know it's a floor amendment, but
Oh yeah, we
So,
can have a stack of just
a
the
stack of
amended
them,
language. Yeah,
just
I
the
mean this
amended
this
language.
memo right here.
That's it,
Just this.
just
Just
that.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I
just
mean. Just
reprint
this.
that and just say
This is
there will
amended
be a floor
Article 2.
amendment coming, so just
Right.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Was there a second thing? No.
The only
Yeah,
other, I didn't
kinda.
put it in your memo because you and I talked. And we
Yeah, I
decided
can't
just-
remember what it was
but I
now.
can
I'm
just
just drawing a
announce
blank. Please.
So we've been in communication with our friends in Wendell about Farley Bridge.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
And without seeing a supporting document or some type of rationale in the body of the email, we were told in a final communication or a recent communication that there was some adjustment maybe on engineering costs.
There may be.
There may be, so we may need a little bit more than the 125. And that they were going to plan accordingly. But I can't find a supporting document in that thread or any explanation in the body of that email that specifically identifies what that cost is. So I don't know how to take it to the three of you or to take it to the voters to ask you to make another floor amendment to adjust the 125. So I think the recommendation I would have at this point is to keep your warrant the way you have it. And if there is something that arises that requires us to come up with another 10,000, 15, whatever it is to help satisfy that between Chapter 90.
I was going to say, start of the
bridge
new year,
work.
we could find another location to pull it
Right.
from without
Well,
having to
and
go
we
back
could
to
do
an
Chapter
STM.
90. We even talked about it during that. So
Right,
when
yeah.
Brian told me this, I said, we don't have any, Wendell's not far enough along to be able to substantiate the engineering change. If there is one, the additional cost, what that might be.
Right,
Again, it's going to go out to bid. There's still a lot of question marks, right?
agreed.
And so then for us to be able to even decide to make an amendment and then bring it to the floor and explain why we're changing it,
Yeah, yeah.
we don't have anything behind that. So 25K, I think, was what they are going to increase theirs by, what they're going to try to do with their Chapter 90. We, or whatever, however they're going to fund it, we can always look at 25 out of Chapter 90 if we're short and we need to get the
Right.
rest of the way there
Right.
and not worry about doing anything with STM.
Right.
So that's where that's at.
Perfect.
I'm not going to ask for more money unless we can justify it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Give
It's
us
like
more
I-
money. We have no idea
we
how
know
what it's going to be.
We know why we went to 125. Why we'd go to 150 is a little bit of a,
It's a stretch.
darts in the dark. So we're
Yeah.
not going to want to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
So I didn't want to keep that from you all, but I didn't know how to suggest that maybe there's a need when I didn't think I could adequately justify what
Yeah,
that need
makes
is.
sense.
So,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So we have ways to get there.
Yep.
When we do have a need, do identify a need along the way.
Yeah, after July 1, there'll be more opportunities.
No pun intended, but
Well,
we'll cross that
I
bridge
don't
when we
mean
get
that. I don't mean that cynically. I mean
I
that
know what you mean.
logistically. Yes, there'll be more.
there. I said no pun intended, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
No, there you go.
Exactly.
Well played. Well played.
Very. Okay. So we'll have that ready, and that will be for Wednesday night.
yes.
Review and discuss proposed draft road opening regulations, fifth read.
So this has, everything is in red line change. This has a few amendments. There was, through the process of working with general code, that will take this regulation once you adopt it, move it into the database so that residents and employees can all find access to it. There was a conversation about assigning what chapter. I'd had a placeholder chapter assignment in there. But they have recommended that 342 should be the right chapter. So I don't see a reason to disagree with that. So I've made that change throughout the document.
I noticed that they went through and changed all the headings.
So there was a comment that I think it was Chairman Smith made, and you all were in agreement about wanting to see some headings added to some of those subsections. General code likes that for searchability and for other purposes, and so they have also made some recommendations on the places where they thought it was missing. So that has been put into that document. What else? All the subsections have been renumbered accordingly. There was a merger of 36 and 37 in the previous draft, and almost like a reversal of their order of importance. So it's a new 36 that breaks down to two pieces. One has like the safety things that are imminent that must be done immediately, and then there's the stuff that's less safety related but maybe regulatory issues. So there's a period of time that they can be corrected within. It doesn't have to be immediate. So hopefully we've adequately addressed what you meant there.
In the glossary, or the terms defined, definitions, Driveway.
Did I miss one? I actually went through all of those and I was like,
No, I mean, I find it funny their headings have periods at the end of them, but that's a whole nother story. Under driveway A and B, we have residential, commercial, and then we define them with different starting words, which makes no sense to me. So
Okay,
is it
I
a
can fix
driveway
that.
or any driveway? I think we'll use one or the other for both, instead of one for one, one for the other. We added MHD, which I know that was a call out from last time.
oh, I see what you're saying. It's
Any
simply that-
driveway or a driveway?
Yeah.
Let's at least say it the same way for both types of driveways. Because
We'll
it
fix
Doesn't matter which one you use either. They're both fine.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that one.
it's semantics, but just for consistency.
I did not have a problem with the combined extended 36, the new 36. I did read through the changes. I think it captures what we're talking about. There's emergent, and then there's just other
Right.
violations that happen that are not safety concerns per se, or not immediate.
In section 34239, excavating during winter, I'm going to recommend on the third line, striking the word "or" after the comma, so that it reads April 1st of the following year, unless an emergency or special condition exists. That "or" was relevant to what's been stricken.
Got it.
So, if you
Was it 40?
39.
39.
39, I'm sorry.
34239.
There we go. Yep, got it.
The or made sense when you had that other section. Good catch. I missed it. The additional language in 37, I did not, the way we referenced the fines, I think it cleans it up the way we were looking for.
This makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Jim, do you mind rereading me your edit for 39?
So, no person or utility shall be granted a road opening permit or any street or sidewalk from the time of November 15th of each year until April 1st of the following year, comma, unless an emergency or special condition exists and permission is obtained in writing from the superintendent, period.
Just take out the word or.
Yeah,
Got it.
that was a long way around, saying strike the word "or."
Perfect.
Mm.
Thank you.
I think 44 captured what we were talking about, that there is a differentiation between being notified and being, the inspections. I did mention to Brian, because these are lengthy, we're always going to find,
I know.
you could read it 16 times and you're going to be like, oh, there, we should have taken out that comma. Those are going to be there.
Don't we have the ability to modify that in one of the things that we adopted?
We gave the
The
town clerk the
clerk
ability.
has
authority
can-
to make
non-
grammatical or
corrections.
section assignment changes.
So, I mean,
And even
if
like,
you
so like
found
that
them, we
one
could
of
let him
or,
know.
if none of us caught it, he could do that on his
Yeah,
own because
we
it
could
really
say,
is just
hey, we
grammatical.
noticed this and you can fix it. So
I'm
that,
hearing emotions, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
what
getting
you're
at
getting
is,
toward, right?
there are, and yeah, because I think we should just get it in place so
agree.
that it can be active. And if there are things that come up, we have a mechanism, at town meetings to modify these as time goes on when we find them on review. I think it's in a spot now where it is absolutely usable to put it in place. Are you interested
know
in hearing
anything.
one?
I mean, I am, unless you know of any other feedback from the highway superintendent. or
I was
council?
superintending, let me know that he has no further edits at this time.
That's what I thought. So, yes.
Make a motion to approve the road opening regulations, chapter 342, as amended, effective June 23rd, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. That was a lengthy body of work from everybody to get there.
Yeah.
Review and discuss proposed amendments to the Water Department regulations, fourth read.
So these ones included the feedback you saw at your last meeting. Oh, not the wrong button. There were a few definitions that we had talked about adding, which Superintendent Sanders researched, so we added those into there. So you'll see that in the definition section. Trying to remind myself of the changes. We added the or their designee under superintendent, so that when that carries through the document, that has the same meaning as it does in the road opening regulations. We were trying to make all three have similar functions. Let's see. I don't believe everything in blue was from the previous review. Oh, you would all ask to strike the charges that were in the document and move them to the appendix. So that change has been made. You also wanted the start of an appendix C that would talk about the water line installer
Mm-hmm.
process that we're developing.
Just so like a couple of comments just on the outset. So section titles haven't been added, but you said General Code had recommended them last time on the last one we just did,
They did on the
highway.
highway
road
because
opening?
it's never been entered into the code before.
Yep.
The water regs are currently in the code.
Do they have? They don't have section titles in the code then. currently?
Most of these sections do, don't they?
Well, your 380-2, 380-3, they don't.
Okay.
Versus what we just did in the road opening, which every subsection had one. Or every section, I shouldn't say subsection. Every section had one.
Okay.
Within 380, like,
2, 3, and
I'm not saying they do or don't, but from a consistency, after just seeing the other one now. And then every definition, or almost every item defined says shall mean, and usually it's just this is this thing. I don't think we need shall mean in front of all of them. So, you know, owner, a person, not shall mean a person. That's all. I would strike all that, just for to clean clarity and
Yeah, they cleaned that up.
Shortening it.
There was a few of those in the road opening.
in the road
They
openings.
cleaned
Yeah, so I
those
think
up.
just looking at each one of the definition ones, we can strike shall mean and probably bring those down a little bit to be more direct.
Okay.
This is what happens when we look at one after another.
We have continuity throughout. We're in a better
Exactly.
place.
And we'll never catch them all, and there'll be more.
So. Right.
Yeah.
We'll rely on Dick to change them. He has the
Exactly,
authority.
same as the last. So we reference a licensed water installer, but we don't define it? And we actually even put it in quotes?
So I think the question is whether or not you're licensing them. So water
Well-
line installer is a term that we are defining. You have now an appendix C that we're building out for that.
So it should be in the definition section, is what I'm saying.
You want a definition for that?
Like, it should be a water installer, you know, properly licensed, listed in the appendix. Something, just to define it, because it's a, you know, we're even using it as a quoted term, so.
But So my question is more about,
Are
is
we
this a
licensing them?
license?
No.
That's the question.
But we are, well, my recollection of our last conversation is, we're not licensing them. They have to be licensed, and they have to be in the appendix, and the approved appendix list of insured, allowed
There will be a
installers.
list. I don't think we were putting the list in your appendix, but they will be listed. There will be a list that generates from this process.
Oh, but the list wouldn't be in this, it would just, where's the
Correct.
list gonna live? Did we define that?
It's going to be maintained by the water department
Got it.
through an annual update process that we're now creating.
Are we approving the list? Because this says we are.
You absolutely can.
Well, I'm just saying this says we are. I'm not saying we
Do
should.
we want to? Or is
I'm
you
that-
more
wanna
saying
do
this
it
is
to
a
your
list
designee.
maintained by and, vetted by the superintendent.
I was going to say, I think it makes more sense to just, this board sets the criteria for how they get vetted
Right.
and let the superintendent just vet it and add the names as he sees fit and reviews it annually for accuracy and, making sure they're all updated and still, ready
So-
to go.
So a rewrite to 380-6 might be, the owner must contact a private insured contractor that meets the criteria approved by the water commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
A licensed water line installer to install it. And then somewhere in here, the list of currently, a current list of authorized water installers is available from the water superintendent. A list of the approved water installers is maintained and available from the water superintendent.
Yeah, the less
We
number
would-
of times that he has to get all of that information and come to the board to ask
Yeah,
us to
really.
approve that person.
It's more of, it's a private
tell
insured
us-
contractor that
Yeah.
that meets the criteria that we've agreed to.
Yeah, to tell
The
us, hey, they
list,
met all
no.
your criteria.
I already have a list.
Right,
so I'm
yeah.
gonna-
Please.
He thought he can get away without having to go up to the seat.
No, I never get away.
Spoke up too many times. Come on up. It's all good.
So I already have a started list, and what I was gonna do is create a file for each contractor in there. I spoke to Brian about this. We'll get the copy of their certificate of insurance, valid hoisting license for digging, stuff like that.
Just A to Z, all the criteria that we've already established that you need. And then reviewed annually to make sure that they're still up to date.
Correct. I'll do the files, and then I'll create a list, and as the list changes, I can just send you all a copy if you want it, or I'll just hang on to it.
Not really.
No, I don't think, we don't need it. We just
Okay.
need it to meet the criteria that we've set.
Sure.
So the things that you just listed, making sure that we have that list of criteria, I
Mhm.
think that belongs there.
Yeah.
And then as long as they still meet those criteria and you are, because you still have discretion to say they're not on the list. There's a
Right.
process to get on the list. They have to get on the list. It's just not automatic just because they meet the criteria. So.
Is there a set date that you have in mind for this annual review? And the reason I'm asking is because depending on when a COI is issued, it might lapse, on a partial year. If,
I imagine to keep it updated would, what would determine that too with each contractor would be when they renew their hoister's license, renew their insurance. I mean, that would just, is that what you're?
I think what
So he's
Selectman Bond's
getting
asking
at-
you is what's the date your office is going to be managing this review by? So if you don't want it to be a rolling process where
No, I
every
think you
contract
should
comes to you.
one week, a certain date every year that you just, there's
For
10
renewals.
10 authorized people on that list that you just take a day or two and go through and confirm that all of those,
I would say the first week of the year. Because when you
The
get
month-
into
month
summer,
of July?
that's the season where most of the digging, we hope, would happen.
yeah.
So you may want to vet them in the spring then, so that it's done and ready when people are starting.
That's what I was
So you may
thinking,
want to do
that.
it like in March or
Okay.
April.
Sure.
That's what I was
That
thinking.
okay, these ones are good for the coming summer season when work's going to get done, right?
Okay.
Kind of what you're getting at.
right.
And then if anything that they've submitted expires before your next review, unless they submit it, they're expired on that date.
Right.
Because they need to submit that
Right.
updated certificate of insurance, which is what you're getting at. If it's August 15th,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes
you have a
sense.
note next to it that says August 15th COI, and if you guys don't get one and you don't cross that out and put the next hoisting license date or next April,
Cease and desist.
then
all works.
you're off the list because you didn't submit it proactively. You're not chasing that down. That's the
No.
point. Like, we're not expecting you to
That's-
chase it down every month.
No, what I was planning on doing, I had mentioned to Brian, was the list that I have, if this is all gonna be approved, then I'll go contact all of them and say, hey, if you wanna be able to do work in the town, this is what I need.
Yep.
Yep.
Just give them all the same list.
It's very simple.
The initial outreach is needed because it's
Correct.
something new. But I
Right.
think, to Jake's point, going forward, the onus is on
Oh,
them.
I'm not
to-
gonna chase them.
the onus is on them to come to you and say, "Hey, I just renewed my hoisting license. Here's a copy of it. Update your file, please."
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I think you probably need to add a page on the website at some point that says to become an approved licensed water line installer for the town of Irving. This is the criteria, or refer to the policy for what the criteria and requirements are. And, our list is updated annually in March or in April. So you would submit everything prior to that if you wish to be added. It will be vetted at that time for the coming year.
Sounds good.
Once we've established it, then it becomes you want to opt in, you do the work to opt in.
Right.
But here's how we should put that information out there for the public.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay. It's a whole lot about licensed water line installers, but that's okay. I know I kind of stopped at 380-6. Other things that people, I know there's some language cleanup for most of these. Other areas of question or concern? (380-9) A. It says repairs of water pipes, lines, private property shall be completed as soon as possible, no later than 30 days. From what? From a notification? From discovery? From something? I know we could probably use common sense, but we probably should define it as well.
What was that on? 3 what?
380-9, Water Department responsibility for certain costs. Section A talks about the 1 inch or less between the curb stop and the house is the resident's responsibility,
Yes.
and repair of water lines, pipes on private property shall be completed as soon as possible and no later than 30 days. No later than 30 days from what?
Discovery of a leak.
Okay.
That-
Then I think we should be explicit about from what.
Okay.
Because there's other things that can happen if you don't do it in 30 days, but I want to be ambiguous about when that 30 days started.
Okay.
Notification of or
I was
discovery.
going to say notification of the discovery
notification.
of the leak.
Yeah, notification of the required, of the leak or required repair.
Or both.
Yeah, I mean, it says repair, we probably should just say
Yeah.
notification of.
Yep.
Required repair. Any other items?
Just a quick question on that. It sort of got stuck in my brain. What is is there a formal documentation of the notification? Do these notifications come in writing? Do you tell them, hey, you got a leak, and then you document that I advise so? I just, not that I expect a problem, but if there was ever a dispute, to say, oh, well, you know,
When we discover one, we'll document it, date and time, and usually we find out via a resident will call anyways that it's coming up out of the ground. So,
But this is kind of the flip side, right? They're being told that they need to repair something. How does that happen? Like actually, right? Could that be one of many ways? Could you be in person verbally and then noting that you've told them? Is it sent in writing? Is it, right? That's your
yeah,
question.
that's what because if it, say a dispute, you notice a leak on the 1st of the month,
right.
and then the 30th of the month is upon us and there's no repair, and then the property owner says, well, he didn't tell me until the 16th. Is there a way to validate when notice was served?
I would say I'll verbally inform them and document it right from the get-go, because that puts them on notice on the 30-day window.
You could commit it to writing and either allow for service by, say, the postal service or in hand.
Yeah, I was going to say.
If a staff member does it and documents this date,
He
time.
does it in person and lets them know, I'll be sending an official letter
Yeah.
notifying you of this, about this date and time and repairs needed.
Right.
It can be just
Just to follow
it can
it
be
up. I
certified
think
mail.
The
you
date
know,
will
Right.
still be the date
a
you
certified
notified
letter.
them, but
you know.
We've been sending the notices to date by certified mail.
Yeah.
so I think in person verbally is fine, but then followed by the written with the date that you told them as the starting date.
Right.
But that just backs it up.
Let me know when you're done with that one. I just want to move on to another one.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. If you are,
Yes,
yeah.
I'm fine. I just-
380-14. Just when we're talking about dates and times, and I didn't catch it before. Within a reasonable length of time, it's talking about access to the meters, and when you don't have access,
Starting
that
13
after
or
is-
14?
it's 14. Consumer to maintain access to meter. Consumers shall maintain a passageway to the meter and keep the meter accessible for reading or removal at all times. Should free access to the meter not be made within a reasonable length of time. What is reasonable? Because what's reasonable to you?
Right.
I think 9 months is reasonable, and I want to argue with you about that. I'm just saying. So
No, that's great.
let's not keep it reasonable. Let's just set a time. It's not accessible. After a certain amount of days, we will take the next steps. So you have it's no different than a repair. It's no different than a leak. Like, it needs to be made accessible within a certain amount of time. I don't even know how often this comes up for your department, that they're not accessible.
I've only had it happen once.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not like this is,
10 business
this
days.
huge, and it's usually just brush overgrown that's stopping you, or people have placed stuff in.
Access to a meter in the cellar. That's what I've had.
Inside
problems with.
access.
Yeah.
So that's why I said 13, because 13 mixes access as well. And that was the one that I was stuck on.
Oh,
Because
got
it
it.
also says, like, if they find it necessary, it will request permission or seek other means. Request permission within a period of time. It's the same idea. Or seek other means if not granted. And before that, it also, again, says that they shall have access at all times for removing, reading, and repairing, which is in 14.
Mhm.
So I think
Right.
13 and 14 are kind of mixing two things together and overlapping each other.
Yeah, and if these are not huge issues, I mean, just make them the same. 10 days, 15
10
days,
business
30,
days.
30 days. It doesn't really.
Yeah, 10 business days.
That's
I think
2
it's 10
weeks.
business
To
days.
me, that's reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
2 weeks to rectify whatever the issue was to come
Sure.
up. So I think just putting that in there within 10 business days.
Yep.
And I would just look at the language of those two and separate them. The first one I think it would focus the first one on being the identification of what its location, and the second one, 14, is access and maintenance. And clean up the language between the two because they overlap a whole lot.
Mhm.
And then you probably don't reference it twice because it won't need it anymore. The 10 days. Next.
38017.
Yep, I was gonna say, I just saw this.
We amended it, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
the amendment it makes no sense.
All water are required to have outside readers, all water services?
Water users.
Meters. It's outside readers and radio heads. That's 38017, right?
Yeah.
So
Should be
all what
meters.
are required to have outside readers or radio heads?
Is it the
What
meter?
has it?
Does the meter itself have the outside reader? Is that what
What
you're
is the
referencing?
radio head or reader attached to?
So you have the meter, you have a reader, which is the button, and then a radio head is,
With the
if we
button.
go to radio reads with a button.
Right, but they're attached to the
But technically,
meter.
they're both attached to the meter.
Via
In-
cord,
in
yes.
serial, yeah,
Wire,
okay.
yes.
So all water meters.
Are required to have outside readers or radio reads.
Correct.
Oh, see, that's weird because then they put 4 meters with a bracket, and yeah, that whole line needs to be. Oh, wait a minute, for meters 1 inch or smaller, the cost per meter.
That should be a separate
Should say
sentence.
period.
It should be a period. Yeah.
That's why I was trying to read it.
Yeah,
Like,
it should be
that
a-
comment
it should
just
be
really
another
threw
sentence.
me off.
Yeah, yeah. And it should be 3 sentences. Then for meters, 1 inch or smaller line, the cost is this. For greater than 1, it's that.
Okay.
It's outside readers or radio
Reads. Radio.
That's what they call-
receivers or
that's what-
whatever.
That's what they're called, radio reads?
No, it can't be.
No. The actual component, like when you go to buy one, it's called a radio read?
So, all right, getting me confused now. So you have the head, you have the reader, which is what we call the buttons.
Yeah.
The black buttons, everybody has those now.
Yeah, and you can walk up and,
Right, and then when we go to radio read, the radio read is, the button goes away, the radio read takes the place of it, so that's,
But it's not. But your radio reading, the thing is something else. The thing on the side of the house is something else.
you can't go and say, I want to buy a radio read to install it on the house instead of the button. I guess we're asking for the terminology, like when
it's
you
like
go
a
to the company and
transceiver or
say,
something. It's probably a water meter radio transceiver or something. We should just
There's
figure
some
out what that is
technical-
and-
all right, I'll find
Yeah.
out, but
Yeah.
we always just call them radio reader.
lingo is,
Right,
yes,
right.
the
Yes.
lingo, you know exactly what the lingo means. And
But
so-
if I'm putting in a 1.5 inch, I gotta go buy it
Yep.
or figure it out.
right.
And I can't go ask somebody for a radio read. They're not gonna.
Radio
They're gonna look at me
Yeah, what
and
is
not
it?
know what I mean.
Yeah. We all know, I think that's why we read over it so many times, because we know what you're talking about, but it's,
That's all. Yeah, just look at the sentence and figure out what they need to have for equipment. It's this or that.
Okay.
Can we go back to 17 again? Is the expense that is that's borne by the owner, is it, right now it says installation. Are you providing them the parts and they have to pay to have it installed?
For a new installation,
For anything that is exceeding 1 inch, the expense of said installation to be borne by the owner of the property.
correct.
Says nothing about purchasing of it. Are you offering them the actual stuff?
Do they
Above-
pay for the meter or do you,
Above 1 inch, they pay for it.
It's not
the
in there.
physical equipment?
Correct.
So that doesn't say
That
that.
doesn't
It
say
just
that
says
in
they
there.
have to
That
pay to have
says
it installed.
installation.
So
That's why I went back to it, because
Yeah, it's
somebody's going to turn around and say, great, give me the meter, and I'll
Right.
pay to have some guy come over and install it. Because that's all I'm responsible to do.
I'm not recommending a full rewrite to that level, but you may want to go through and take a look at this, Pete, and decide if there's easier to reference expenses as a bullet and say everything is 1 inch or less the water department covers, over 1 inch is all costs are the responsibility of the homeowner or business.
Okay.
And then you can strike it out of all these sections where it says, for this, for that, do that, because then you just in one place say, you know, responsibility for expense for costs or whatever.
Right.
So, but it would be a lot of edits. So take a look at it. Maybe it's not the time to do that if all of them are clean enough, but it would clear that up so you can just define it one time and say, all costs, blah, 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 blah. 1 inch are ours, all 1.5 inch are the, the requester.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to guarantee we're going to catch every word, that it might not be as broad or correctly worded. So it's another way to look at it. $380.24 if you're there. Service charge for meters testing refunds. Service charges for testing 1 inch and smaller will be in accordance with the provisions of MGL.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing to do with refunds, unless the MGL says it.
The MGL is very clear about what to do.
Okay,
On
for
all of
both? Okay.
So I think that's the
I read
issue,
the
is that
MGL.
there's several places where testing of meters was addressed in our regulations, and it may not always, the language that was being used may not always align with
The
the
MGL.
actual statute. So council has advised that we stop trying to write our own version of how to interpret it and instead just refer back to and follow that.
And that way, when
Okay.
it changes, we don't have to change ours.
Exactly.
So do we even need to be so wordy, or is it service charges for meter testing and refunds, CMGL, period? I mean, do we really need to say for 1 inch and smaller? Does it not reference other sizes?
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean, it's a question. It's a question
I
I
don't
have. It only talks
It
about 1
doesn't
inch or
talk about
smaller.
diameter. It just talks about how
So
consumer
what
meters are
would
handled.
it be if it was more than 1 inch? Do we have a different section?
Yep.
For service charges? I'm assuming we don't. Pete?
It's a strike.
I don't.
On dash 24.
Yeah, no. I'm just
No,
saying
I
if
think,
there was
I think Pete was flipping to it. Check
inextricably,
it,
if
so.
there was one that was, just thrown somewhere.
Right, it's probably this whole issue of 1 inch or not 1 inch. Again.
Right. I think it was your predecessors trying to tease out what we're responsible for, what somebody else may be responsible for.
Right. So I don't know what you guys think, but I'm leaning towards recommendation to go back, Pete, to just take a look through this, go through all the sections that talk about the differences with size
Right.
and what's going to happen. Strike those and build, a section that says,
Under expenses.
cost,
or-
responsibility for, whoever's responsible for cost, whatever we title it, but something that speaks to
1 inch or larger.
who's responsible for the cost of equipment and repairs, et cetera.
Mhm.
And then everywhere you find these references to 1 inch and these different things, build them all into one and take them out of all these subsections that just make it hard to follow.
Okay.
Because then I'm guessing,
That'll,
am I the 1 inch? Am I the 1.5? Is it different here? Is it different there? Well, it doesn't say it here, so do I not have to worry about it here? Instead you just overarching say, all expenses are the responsibility for any over 1 inch line. And you list examples and any other. And then you list one that says what the town will cover.
Okay.
And then you can take it out of all these where it's just makes it harder to follow how to split up each one thing, right? Does that make sense?
And just for clarification, the cutoff is 1 inch or below is ours. It's not below 1 inch.
That's
Right.
So
The
we
way I've read it.
our responsibility inclusive of 1 inch and below.
correct.
Anything greater than 1 inch is okay, just so that
Yep.
we're clear.
Yeah, 1 inch or less is ours. Not up to 1 inch is ours.
Got it. Thank you.
Um, 380-30.
It's funny, I was just reading the same one.
We struck the fees, but left the rest of the wording. The owner of property shall be charged, oh, well, actually, I guess it does work. I didn't read it.
Because it's in accordance.
Yeah, okay, in
So we'll
accordance.
stick the
Yep,
$40 in
that's
there.
fine, yep. All right. So 380-34, if it's in accordance, do we need to be defining it, or is that the things that we have choice on? Do we know? Without looking it up?
This is, yes, you could strike it just down to the MGL reference.
Okay.
This is the structure that we follow, but if you wanted to be less specific, we could do that.
Does the MGL define the same? Do you know? If you don't know, we can look into it.
I can go back.
Okay.
Yeah, this is our interpretation and how we administer it, and council's reviewed.
Okay. So it's the administration of it. It's not a copy of the language that's there.
Correct.
Okay. Then I'm not concerned. I just don't want us to rewrite language that's in MGL.
Whenever the building or place such violation.
So 380-35B, or it's not B anymore. Sorry.
No, it's still
It
B.
is,
It is still
It
B.
added
Why
it
does
back
it
in.
do that?
I don't know
Drops
why.
it down below. It's weird.
Strikes it and adds it
Hard to-
below. Yeah,
yeah,
it threw
okay.
me off too.
But the resident must pay the appropriate shut off and turn on fees
Right.
per, according to the fee schedule, not $40 and $40.
Yep.
So it must pay the shut off and turn on fee.
We'll just refer back to Schedule A.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it says pay in advance in the second sentence. I mean, it's all pay in advance, right? You pay. It doesn't happen until you pay.
Right.
So if the resident waits to pay the bill until the morning of the termination.
And that is at the 75 day? That's the 75th day? At a minimum is what we're saying?
Well, it's
To me, I mean, at some point
it's
we
weird because we're in the start of that. It's B is in order for the water to be restored. It's not
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about terminating anymore.
Right.
But then halfway through, it talks about paying for the termination.
I think in A, we need to move that up to A and decide at what point are we charging an administrative fee for the shutoff? For providing notice of shutoff. Because it's really what that says is we're charging an administrative fee for having to keep providing you notice of shutoff before it was actually shut off, even if you pay.
So you want
Right.
to move that up to sub?
If we want to have it, do we want to have it, I guess is the first question, right? So it's charging an administrative fee even if they don't get shut off. If we do want that, then I think it belongs in A, and it belongs somewhere along the way. At some point, we should say, at this notice, now you have to pay an administrative fee as well, on top of your delinquent bill,
Yeah.
which is to cover all the times we had to send you notices, or whatever.
Okay.
I would, that would be the theory, at least in my mind, if we did have it. So,
Okay.
when we send a shut-off notice, at least 60 days, that shut-off notice will also include a $40 administrative fee to reinstate in addition to your delinquent account. That we could do if we wanted, or we could just strike the whole thing.
So, can I ask a question? That's foolish. I know I can ask a question. I'm
For
going
another
to ask
week.
a question. In that paragraph, when right after it talks about how you calculate it with 2 employees times 4 hours times whatever the labor rate is, when it says if the resident waits to pay the bill until the morning of the termination, isn't that the morning of restoration? Isn't that what we're talking about? So the paragraph starts with, in order for water service to be restored during normal work hours, the resident must pay the bill in full, plus the 40, and we're talking about per
On and
the
off.
schedule.
Yep.
So we get rid of that, and the administration charge. If the services are requested to be turned on after the working hours, the resident must pay in advance the cost of doing the service, period.
In addition to the above fees, should be there.
Sure. If the resident waits to pay the bill until the morning of the termination, it's not termination. You lifted that language from a termination one. This is the morning of restoration, correct?
But we wouldn't even be doing it, so it doesn't make sense to have it.
That's what I'm reading that again, saying we wouldn't
If
be.
it is a restoration language, I don't know why you even have it in there, because we're not even going to schedule it and do it till you pay.
Right.
So it's
pay in
no
advance. And that's why I'm reading that going,
Yeah.
it's not, we're not going to wait and they're going to say, well, I just went over to the town hall and I paid today. I expect you to come over and pay. Unless this language is,
problem. That's why I thought it belonged in A.
we'll allow you to turn it on today, but we're going to charge you additional fee because it's not within our normal schedule. You're asking us to stop what we're doing and head over and turn your water on.
I think it really does belong to A, because
Yeah.
what it's trying to say is on the 75th day, so I don't know, August 1st, it says we're going to shut you off. On August 1st, you go in and pay. Well, the water department has scheduled to arrive and terminate your water, so you have to pay an admin fee for us not to terminate it, because we've already now
okay,
scheduled a
all
task
right.
to go shut your shit off. right?
Termination of the shut
Pardon me, but
That's funny.
but to turn your water off. So there's a
I
fee
got
because
you.
we have to cancel an appointment to terminate your water because you're doing it the morning
I
of.
got you.
So I really do think it's supposed to be a
It is,
termination
it
fee.
is, okay.
But I would, it goes up in A. And then second,
stricken
do
from
we
B.
want to have it? And if so, is it only due the day of? Because that's what it's insinuating, is that the day of termination, you have to pay an additional administrative fee to avoid shut off.
Correct. If it's not done within a certain time frame prior to the date of termination.
Right. And I
Okay.
am
Sorry,
I am almost a proponent of saying, if we say the last notice goes out at 60 days, and they'll have at least 15 more days till it happens, we assess the $40 at that point. Because we've sent you your 60-day, it's getting terminated notice, and now we've scheduled a termination in 2 weeks.
And so
that point-
anything after the 60-day notice incurs the
Administrative fee.
administrative fee.
That's what I'm getting at.
Gave them 2 months to do it without the fee.
Right.
Anything after that incurs a fee to turn it back on.
Because now we're already scheduling to shut you off.
Everything got set in motion. All right, I hear you. It makes sense. So it is in A then.
Okay. So in A, shut off notices, 60 days, the notice will specify that it will occur on or after Monday. That's interesting. Yeah. I was trying to go somewhere with that. Shut-off notices will go to property owners and the current occupant 60 days after the postmark date of the original bill. Shut-off will not occur sooner than 75 days from the original billing. The shut-off notice will clearly state the earliest date that the shut-off can occur, and an administrative fee will be charged in addition to avoid shut-off or something like that.
Yeah.
Whenever the building or place of such, because this is where you were really going.
That's where I was going, is that last
Go ahead,
sentence that
guys.
got added
Go
in
ahead.
as well. I'm going to let somebody else chime in on that one. Unless-
Go ahead, Jim.
Whenever the building is.
Do we have 2 or more parties receiving water through the same pipe?
We've been working to rectify that, but yes.
There are still some
I don't know that
instances
there's
where.
many, but there were a handful.
Okay.
Well, and this is a little bit of an incomplete sentence.
Yeah.
Whenever the building or place of such violation, whenever what? Whenever the building or place of, it's not a violation, right? It's delinquent account.
Right.
So, if delinquent account, yeah, if the water service serves more, more than one party, right? That's what that's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And only one is delinquent, it's still getting shut off unless we order otherwise?
But it is only one delinquency, correct? For those that share
Correct.
the pipe, there's 1 meter, or is there?
How's the bill handled?
So there's, like, for instance, on Lillian's Way, the condos, there's one water line going in, and then in the basement of one of the condo units, it'll split. Some of them have both units meter in that one cellar. Some of them have the split right there, then with the 2 meters. So unless there's a shut off before the meter, that's the only way you can shut the water off, but then they can turn it on as soon as you go out the door. So if you had to shut the water off,
If you had to do it at the curb,
they have to do
So you're
it.
saying the curb stop for a condo, for example, hypothetically,
Mhm.
the only way for the water department to actually enforce a shut off is to shut it off the curb stop, which shuts off both meters,
Correct.
No.
even though there is a single delinquency.
No.
shouldn't be allowed.
Shouldn't
Not
be
allowed.
We can't do that.
Nope.
Right.
I don't care what language we try and work on there.
No, we can't do
If
that.
there is a second homeowner, resident,
Right.
I don't care if they're owner or just a renter. If there's
mean,
somebody
we
living
can-
in that has no
Yeah, we
party
can't do
to
that.
this other delinquency,
Yep.
we deal with that delinquency with them through additional administrative fees, through
I mean,
lawsuit if
can
we
go-
have
We can
to.
require them to go get shut-offs put in and be able to shut it off or run a new line and lien them for it or whatever. We can
Right,
go
but
whatever
we
steps
can't
we
shut
have
off
to.
a third,
But
a
we
second
can't,
or third
yeah.
party that has
Right.
no bearing on that case. I mean, that's just somebody's
So we
gonna
need to
sue
find
us.
some-
like, no.
Some wording that says if the shut-off serves more than one account or meter, and any of those meters is non-delinquent or all of the meters are not delinquent, then no shut-off will occur. Until at which time the delinquent account can be isolated, because you
Something like that.
can't shut off the other
And to
party.
avoid this ever happening again, the water commissioner should not authorize any connection.
Right, I
that
think we
proposes to
say,
do
there's a
anything
whole
like
section
this.
that talks about you can't share water meters and you can't
Yeah.
piggyback them
But we shouldn't
and
even.
put them
It
downstream.
should
And,
be a separate curb stop for each.
Yes,
Per
Yes.
meter.
per meter,
yes,
per resident.
we need to
Um,
have a town side shut off per meter.
Is there, this is secondary to this regulation. Just a thought about ensuring that if it's a half dozen, a dozen throughout the rest of the town that still have that, set a plan in place that says it needs to be rectified. These are not grandfathered in to stay like this forever. They have to get rectified in some way, shape, or form, and that comes with a cost, but that could take time. It's not like it needs to be rectified in the next 90 days, but, in the next 3 years, 5 years, like, there needs to be some sort of, like, we're going to make a change that forces shut-offs to be on each one of those. These were done back then, this was allowed. They are not allowed now. There needs to be a way to rectify that. Because to
It
turn
could
around and
be
just say, we can't have access to shut off water
Yeah, that doesn't work.
without shutting off
I mean,
somebody
here's the
else's water.
thing, you can
So-
shut them off mechanically and put lock boxes around them. There are ways. You can
Right.
put mechanical lockouts all around them that's what they do in lockout
If-
tagout safety. You can lock out a shut off.
If you can
So
get
there
access
are
to
ways.
somebody's
If-
home.
Well, then there's a
Right.
legal path. So there are ways to get
Because
there.
they do make valves that you can put the padlocks on. We can put one of our locks on it, but you have to get into the, cellar
It's not
orders.
simple.
All right. So then,
You're right. The better way is that we just get
Sure.
rid of it, but there
Um,
are ways.
But in the interim, having a way to do it that way and swapping out those shutoffs to make sure that they're lockout shutoffs, should we need to access them, because we have to put those in because they're a shared meter. Sure.
I think
How many exist? I know we said.
I don't know.
handful, or-
Not
I was going to say, I think to what you were getting at, first step is if you can assess like where these are, how many we have, and come back to us with how many we have and what even a high level thought about how we would mitigate those looks like. Then we can determine whether it's something we want to pursue.
Yeah, and
But we don't
like I
even
said,
know, so
I-
we don't know where to start.
Yeah, and I would never propose anything that says, oh, by the way, this is a pretty extensive, dig up and installation of a new shut-off, and it's going to be, X amount of cost. Have it done in 90 days. Like, doesn't make any sense.
And it's not even guaranteed that we will.
Right?
After I'm done, it's fine. You know, I already keep teasing you about that.
Yeah.
But no, I think just if we don't even know the scope, so figure out the scope of areas where we couldn't shut off. We couldn't control the shut off without affecting other multiple meters, and then identify what a resolution would look like to resolve that, and then we can assess if
Yeah,
it's something.
that's
to pursue
outside
and
of
how.
this. That's a secondary
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, that doesn't change this.
Brian, did you capture what Jake had mentioned about the rewrite for the sentence that was added in B? Okay.
Yes.
I know I heard him talking about it, but I actually didn't write anything down, and I was
Are they
just,
doing service and above fees? That part?
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we just need to
do
figure out that
red
language
line.
on the whenever the building serves more than 1 meter.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one I
will
was
not be
talking
turned
about.
off. Oh, okay.
That's the one I was talking about, is the whenever line.
I
It
wouldn't
need-
do that anyways.
It needs a rewrite.
Right. Because we had an incident like that in the past 6 months. There was a meter that froze and broke, and to shut it off, it was a house that has 2 dwellings right next to each other. We had to shut off the street so the plumber could make the repair. While the plumber's making the repair, the neighboring dwelling,
Had no
their water
water.
was also shut off.
So,
They were related, but
and another reason why they need to be rectified, but
Correct.
a damage, a leak, a mitigating circumstance where we have to shut it off to do it is one thing, but punitive for failure to pay,
right.
Yeah.
and you're shutting off and saying the water commissioners will not turn it back on until
Talk
it's
to your
remedied.
neighbor.
Talk to your neighbor and tell them to pay their bill. Like, that doesn't
Right.
that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Two different things. I mean, we inconvenience people all the time. You lose a water main, you shut everything off, and the whole neighborhood is inconvenienced for 12,
Fix it.
14, 20 hours while we work on it. It happens. It's not ideal when somebody has to shut it off, when a contractor has to do that to make a repair, and we should fix it.
Agreed. C, sorry, we're still on 35.
Yeah, I know.
C, if your check gets denied, we're going to shut your water off with no notice, but only if you have a balance of $10 or more. Sorry.
I don't
It's
know
just
where these
comical
come
sometimes.
from, but yeah.
I am not a proponent of we're going to shut it off with no notice. I
You
mean,
always have to give notice.
you gotta
you
give
have to.
notice. So
Strike C.
yeah, I mean,
Just
bounce
strike it.
check is that's a whole different thing. Strike C. C becomes A when the check gets bounced,
Right.
and we start down A path and move on,
Got it.
because now you're delinquent and you have a check fee. Like, it's not a thing. There should be a bounce check fee in the fee schedule.
You
There
can mitigate
is.
that by, if somebody's paying by check, the work can't be done until the check clears.
This was a shut off. It was a shut off criteria. Your check bounces will shut you off. It wasn't what it triggered a shut off.
Oh. Oh, I thought this was if the
No,
check.
no, no,
if the
this
check,
is not the
if the check was
payment.
paid
No, no,
to
no,
turn it back
no, no,
on
no,
bounces.
No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah, let's not.
no.
Just strike the whole thing.
Okay.
Someone bounces a check, there's a check bounce fee and the fees,
That's-
and then we start delinquent bill process because your bill's not
Yeah,
paid
your bill's
now,
not
right?
paid,
We
yeah.
revert back.
Ay, ay, ay.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything? Oh no! What now?
I'm just
You
reading
shut
them.
some
and it's
water
like-
off?
No, it's just, I'm reading these and it's like it's Chat GPT gone wrong. Like, it's just, I don't, I'm reading 380-36, and it's just the water commissioners have the statutory right to grant abatements of water bills. Fine. All requests for abatements must be filed in writing within 45 days of date of mailing bill. It just doesn't read.
I understand. So, Pete, what I'm going to ask is that you kind of just go through this thing like top to bottom with a fine tooth comb. We already talked about doing it from like the 1 inch and greater than 1 inch, but just across the whole thing, like where language is just messy, ugly, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Go through and mark it up, just mark it up, correct it, and we'll take a stab at it.
And I apologize because some of these should have been caught. I mean, this is our 4th read. So, like, we've gone through
It
this a few
is.
times, but we get hung up on certain pieces of it,
Yep.
and we spend time
Yeah.
on those, and then we don't get through some of the minutia. Now that we've hit a lot of the bulk, we're getting into the very small language that we glossed over the last 3 reads when we were dealing with the bigger stuff, and that's on us because we should have caught some of those
Yeah,
ahead
it
of
is.
time and
Yeah, it
given
is.
you a full, succinct change all of this from the 1st and 2nd read. So
But the
My
draft
apologies.
also isn't that clean to start with, so
it's not.
we should spend a little more time on it ahead of time, probably to get it clean before we see it, to save that effort.
A lot of this language is your current regulation
I know.
from 2013.
Are you trying to blame me?
Listen,
Rightly so? No,
I don't think the 3 of you were on
None
the
of us
board in
were on there.
2013.
I don't think so. It feels like it's been a lot of years, not quite that many. Getting close though.
But I understand what you all are saying. So
Yeah.
I've got
But
copious
I
notes.
just we are making this effort to go through the full
Yep.
review of the whole thing. We're not just making one provision change, so let's take that holistic look at it, right, and clean it
Okay.
up. I mean, even the billing disputes, which I think you just called out, it's like, if it's inaccurate, not inaccurate, it will be denied. If it is accurate, it will be granted. We don't need to be that wordy.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's found to be an inaccuracy, it will be abated according to this, period, right? We don't have to be as, so we can clean some of that stuff up.
You talking about -37?
38. The third subparagraph in 38.
Got it. Yeah, I was just
And
looking
I don't
at-
know what 2.8 is,
I don't
the
know
section that it refers to.
Now that we've renumbered everything,
fix it.
2.8
It
doesn't,
doesn't mean anything.
it's
Right,
not
right.
accurate anymore.
So there's some
Um,
of that stuff.
But yeah, like the reasons for abatement, I'm reading that one just to give you another thing that I'm seeing when I'm reading it. It's referencing things like due to no access to the meter, but we've talked about access to meter and the remedies to that and the repercussions for that. So this should be in aligning with that, and I don't know if it is, because now we're talking about, well, we couldn't get access, so now we're giving an abatement because you refused to give us access. So like the cause of, if we say after 30 days, then they're start incurring fees, or we take other action to get access to this, or no, it was 10 business days we just talked about.
Yeah.
To then turn around and say, well, they denied us access for 60 days to get in there, but then filed for an abatement because something was off by the time we read it. So it just doesn't seem like it meshes well. That should almost, so it needs to be fleshed out a little bit better where access, to me, denial of access is almost on the, no. If you denied,
Avoids your-
if
avoids
you
your
denied us
right to
access, that's
abate,
on the,
right?
there's no
Yeah,
abatement for
yeah.
that. You know,
Yeah. If you pass that time
yeah.
without a extenuating circumstance, yeah, absolutely.
Something. So anyways, just stuff like that where I don't think they speak to previous sections that have similar language that really need to talk to each other. I don't think some of these sections do that. Take them isolated and they refine, but then couple them with previous sections and they start to get a little convoluted.
So any sections that, other than kind of going through all that and looking at it cohesively, and I've noticed that some, as we've gotten further in it, a bunch of the sections have titles, so there's some of that inconsistencies and things. Any areas of note that you want Pete to look at further, other than the overall kind of reread and clean up? on 38048, there's reference to the sketch or what a sketch looks like or a plan. Brian, you noted like what does it need? Does it need to be surveyed? Is a sketch acceptable? What detail level? All that. So you need to define what you'd want it to be, and then we can figure out from there.
Okay.
I think we talked about that one.
You said no, it didn't have to be surveyed, but it does have to have
All of the pertinent
reference points,
information,
location,
reference
the scale,
points.
something. I think I recall.
That was last time's discussion.
It was verbally, but it
Oh,
never
okay,
got.
all right.
Yeah, we did
Yeah,
talk
all
about
right,
that
no, that's
one.
fine.
That,
That's fine.
no, you can't show up with a napkin from
Right.
Dunkin' Donuts
Okay, I do
and scratch
remember
it
the
in the back
napkin.
and say,
Right.
"Hey, this is what I want you to build."
It wasn't a napkin, but we've received something that looks
Something
similar.
Look, it was right about here.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, something
Okay.
that actually has scale and
Right.
Landmarks. and-
landmarks. and-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Got it.
Do it yourself with an Excel spreadsheet. I don't care. Just make sure
Yeah,
that
it's gonna be relatively
Yeah.
coherent.
Mhm.
The hydrant moved to 196. Totally different section of our code, right? That's on Appendix A and fees.
Oh, the fee section. So yeah, I was just
Like hydrants is
Drawing-
now on a different schedule somewhere else, right?
you all
Is that on the
took
snow
at town
schedule?
meeting a bylaw that addresses what the fine structure is for not clearing a hydrant. So having it cited in the regulations to be a different amount doesn't make sense. And I don't know who would be the enforcing authority. This would suggest the water commissioners are the enforcing authority, whereas the bylaw says chief of police is.
Yep.
So I think we should just leave it with the chief of police.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Superintendent's okay with that.
That's right.
And then for some reason, in the previous version, all of the amendment dates and accepted dates were at the end of the fee schedule. In our current style of how we've been structuring them, we put them all up front.
That's fine.
So I just struck those.
So Appendix B speaks to the insurance of what a water line installer has to have, and then C has the requirements.
Right.
So if there's anything missing, obviously, Pete, as you went through everything that they needed to have, I know you mentioned hoisting, insurance, et cetera. Make sure that everything's listed there, because that'll be the approved criteria that the water commissioners have adopted. And then
Okay.
that in turn will inform what you make sure they all have to stay on the list.
Okay.
Good on water for tonight? Okay. We'll probably visit later in July, give a little time to go through, because it's going to be a body of work to go through that thing fully again.
Sure.
Do some cleanup.
Yep.
But keep me posted on how it's going and where you're at, and if you have questions. And then when we get to a clean draft, another draft, we'll bring it back.
Okay.
Okay? Sewer regs. So, review and discuss proposed amendments to the sewer use regs. So my recommendation on this one is, unless there's something specific either of you have noticed, these have to go through and a lengthy process, so we're gonna be working on these with Bill a
Yeah.
bunch, so rather than diving into them again tonight to just kind of start fresh with him, from him seeing them freshly, I just recommend we table them and move them to a future meeting.
These have to go through a hearing.
Sewer
If they're
regs have to go to a
Sewer
public
regs,
hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more time.
There's
in
more
between.
time, and we're not gonna get close to adoption. I thought water, we might get closer tonight, but we didn't, but that's okay. But sewer, I know we won't,
Yeah.
so unless
All
you
right.
note anything that you wanna call out that we should look at,
Nope.
okay, good. All right, we'll pass over those
Okay.
to a future date.
I mean, I would, the only suggestion, if you're so inclined, is to some of the things that are happening in the wastewater are probably the same that we just found in the water. So if you know,
If I see him, I will.
I would say actually in the
the wastewater's
sewer,
a little cleaner. The sewers.
It's clearly a newer rate because it's got a different format to it.
It's got a
got
very
more of
different
our
structure to
our-
it.
Like
Okay.
the road opening format.
right.
So I think we've, actually, what does it say at the top? When did we last
That's
do
what I was
these?
just looking at it. 2010.
These
Well,
are
they were-
slightly older.
They're
but
older, but they're written differently.
I gotta say, I get the sense that these were maybe reviewed by your attorney, and some of that was proposed back with your
Got it.
predecessors.
Yeah.
So maybe not as heavy of a lift as
Right.
as the water.
And in most of the work that's been done so far is everywhere it said DPW, that's been corrected.
Yeah.
Anywhere it said director, that's been corrected to be superintendent. That language has been added to the definitions, and the definitions had it was like subsection A through like, D. I mean, it was a very long, you said clean all that up. So all that's been changed.
Mhm.
Substantively, all the other materials largely what was in the document from 2010, except there was the reference to a fee schedule that does not exist in the regulations. So we were starting to flesh one out. The challenge is I can't find reference to a fee schedule other than on the back of your application that has been in place for all these years. It says $150 for residential connections, and for commercial and industrial, see the ordinance. And there isn't an ordinance. So I've moved what exists into this
Okay, so
document,
we gotta
but those
build
are some of the places where we need to flesh it out. But I think, obviously you all should do a thorough review, but the rest of it actually looked to be in good legal form. Water is giving me the sense that maybe that was more of a local effort.
Okay. Anything else on that sewer for now then? No? Good?
I'm good.
Okay. Good. Do we have anything else on here for you tonight, Pete?
I don't think so.
I think we beat them up enough.
Yep.
Huh?
I said I think we beat them up enough.
I got my homework.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We'll figure out where we're going to put the sewer on next and let you know. I don't
Sure.
know if it'll be the 7th or not, so we'll keep you posted.
I'll catch up with you later on, see what's the
Okay.
most
Yeah, absolutely.
up-to-date red line you got.
The one, this one?
Thank you.
Review and vote to establish a museum committee. So this is basically the language that we had had in the proposed warrant article for bylaw.
That's correct.
Basically unchanged. It just gives us the opportunity to now see how it goes and tweak it a little over the coming year, couple of years, whatever that may look like, and then potentially bring it forth as a bylaw later. Any changes or anything you want to do before we create it? We have staggered terms. We have 3-year staggered terms, 5-member.
Correct.
I think it, from I don't know what your point of views are, but I think for a starting point, it's as good as we've got, and we want to get it off the ground and see how it goes. We can always amend it anytime.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm sorry, Scott, I didn't hear you.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, so we'll just
Okay.
make the motion.
Yeah.
I got you. Motion to establish. I will make a motion to establish the museum committee, comprised of 5 members, as detailed in sections 1 through 7 of the proposal dated June 6, 2025, and further to have sections 1 through 7 recorded into the minutes of this meeting in their entirety.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought that was required anyways.
What?
The memo becomes part of the minutes.
It's part of the agenda materials.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Unless you
minutes.
voted
Not the
into the
minutes.
meeting minutes, it doesn't.
Got
And the
it.
agenda materials technically don't have to be kept forever. Only meeting minutes have to be.
Got it.
So,
Yeah, so it's good to keep it because it is important to keep.
yes. For
Okay.
all the years that Bets has done research on what your predecessors have had votes on, if it's not in the minutes, it becomes very, very
Doesn't
challenging.
exist.
It effectively might not. And then potential appointment to museum committees.
Yep.
Section 7. I'm sorry, Section 12.
Right. Yes.
So we have 3 residents who've communicated interest in joining the newly formed committee.
Correct.
Teresa Dodge, Betty Lou Mallet, and Kelly Lloyd.
I have
And-
one follow-up question on that.
Yes?
Have any of them expressed interest on who gets the 1 year, who gets the 2 year,
No.
who gets the 3 year?
We left that to the 3 of you. And you have 5 seats, and so it can be 2 at 3 years, 2 at 2 years, and 1 at 1 year. And it
So-
gets you
But we
into
only
that
have
cycle.
3.
Right, but
No, I'm just saying, like, how
we
you
could do
divvy
2
up
of them at
those-
3 years right
those
now
staggerings.
and
One
one of
at
them at
2
2
years.
years. And then the rest, as we find more members, can
Correct.
take the rest of the 2 and the 1.
That's correct.
Which actually, for new members coming in, they want
That
less
makes
number
more
of years
sense
of
because they
commitment
don't know yet.
Yeah.
And these people have been doing this
and are
at
asking
some
for it.
level and are
I like
interested in it. I like it too.
Can
Made
we?
that easier.
We can appoint for more than. Usually, when we're appointing, it's
3 years.
no, but it's well, we're establishing it, so never mind.
Well, you've already voted to establish, now you're just appointing.
right, but I was thinking it was till the next election, but these are not elected; these are
Nope.
appointed, so
That's
we can
correct.
appoint them for the duration.
Correct.
That's why I stopped myself because I was like, "Yeah, I'm mixing 2 things."
But we can't appoint them for more than 3 years, can we?
Correct.
So we can't appoint them till June 30. 3
Of what?
years from now.
No, you can, because it's going to be effective July 1st.
July 1st.
Oh, I missed the beginning.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of today because
No,
we
no, no, no.
established today, but we're not appointing today.
Correct.
Fair point. Okay.
yeah, they all
Got it.
start
Yeah, no,
July,
July
1
1
through June 30th
June
of whatever
30
year
of-
we decide.
Okay.
That's
got it.
exactly it.
So
So,
you're saying 28 and 27?
I think that makes sense.
yeah,
2028, 2027?
2 of them at 28.
Not
and
2010?
yeah, we're not going to go backwards.
Not 2010?
So 2 of them will be to 2028, and 1 of them will be 2027. Shall we draw straws? who gets the 2 year?
This is a very collegial, supportive group. I don't think that they
I
will
don't.
be.
Yeah,
I
and they're
know,
all
I
going to run
know.
again, and there's multiple seats. It's not going
Yes.
to matter. All right. Well, they're in the order that they are. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Teresa Dodge and Betty Lou Mallet as members of the museum committee for a term of 3 years, beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And I'll make a motion to appoint Kelly Loyne as a member of the museum committee for a term of 2 years. Geez, I'm going to mess that up every time. Beginning July 1, 2025, and ending June 30th, 2027.
I'll second that.
I was going to say, point of order, should I recuse myself from that vote? I mean, I have no vested interest or anything to gain from.
You can abstain if you
It
want,
is
but
your choice.
recusing,
It
I
is
don't
your
think
choice.
matters.
All right.
So
It's been,
at that
it's
point-
been seconded, so.
Yep, it's been seconded.
Call for a vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain,
Okay,
for the record.
thank you. All right. Review the modular office procurement for public works. So my take on this one is, do we think we'd move it forward tonight? And if we don't, then do we want to discuss it or just table it till a future meeting? Right. Just an acknowledgement that you won't be here, so it's our first read at it, and if we're not going to finalize it, I hate to spend time on it and
I
restart.
can't imagine you would finalize it this evening. If you want to, I will sit through this and run through all of it with you. I have no problem with that. You tell me what you want to do.
I don't think so.
July 7th?
Yes. So we will pass over the review of the modular office procurement for public works, carry it to the 7th. Review and issuance of the 16th and 17th water commitments for FY25.
I'm just looking for the amount. Was it 720?
The first one, yes.
Yeah. Make a motion to approve the 16th water commitment fiscal year 25 in the amount of $720.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve the 17th water commitment fiscal year 2025 for final water use charges in the amount of $55.66.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And those are on the table for you.
The FY 2026 reappointment of board and committee members.
It's a long one. Is there 20,
Oof.
20-something of them?
So, want to split them up? A few groups?
Sure.
22 of them. Have at it.
22 of them, huh? You
Yeah.
count them that quick?
Well, no, there's,
Took a while to draft them. So
if you keep scrolling, Brian
Yeah,
was
the
really nice
motions,
and
all the
actually put all the
motions.
motions in there to make sure we captured all the correct names.
Uh-huh, which is very
I didn't have any.
appreciative of him.
I did
I
review
didn't count
the.
that many. I didn't count how
the
many there were,
thing.
but
Much appreciated,
yeah.
Brian.
we can copy and paste bets.
Well, I'll take a stab at the first 7, and maybe we'll just kind
Sure,
of work our way through
Okay.
them.
you got it.
Make a motion to appoint David Brule for 1-year term starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, as an archaeological preservation officer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Philip Wonka for a 1-year term starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, as an ambulance advisory representative.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Richard Newton and Teresa Dodge, both for 3-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2028, to the Board of Registrars.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to appoint Linda Downs-Bembry and Jacob Smith, both for 3-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2028, to the Capital Planning Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to appoint Holly Fitzpatrick for a 3-year term starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2028, to the Cemetery Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to appoint Brian Smith as a representative and Glenn Johnson Musad as an alternate representative, both for 1-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, to the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Maureen Black and Cynthia Roy Clark, both for 3-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2028, to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. You or me?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Sarah Vega-Liros for a 3-year term effective July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2028, to the Cultural Council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to appoint Richard Newton and Philip Wonka to a 1-year term starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the E911 Committee.
Is it E911 as E911 representatives? Does it
Yeah.
need to be
Or,
that?
I will amend my motion as E911 representatives.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to appoint Pamela Bethelier and Joyce Newton to a 1-year term effective July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, as election inspection and tellers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, I was rereading something.
It's
What's
okay.
that?
I didn't hear him
You
vote
didn't.
at first.
You
but
didn't
then
because
he
I
did.
got hung up on something else. You're
We're
good.
good. We're good.
Are we going to continue the
We're
march?
on 11.
Yeah.
All right. I'll make a motion to appoint Leslie Brown Warden and Nancy Kruslick Clerk to 1-year terms effective July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, as election workers.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Jacqueline Boyden to a one-year term effective July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, as Franklin County Cooperative Inspection Program Representative.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will make a motion to appoint Glenn Johnson-Moussard to a one-year term effective July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026 as to the Franklin County Regional Planning Board.
Representative. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Brian Smith to a one-year term beginning July 1, 2025, expiring June 30th, 2026 to the Franklin County Solid Waste Management District Representative.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I got you.
Did you,
Aye, yeah, I thought I did.
did I?
Huh?
Let me ask for that vote again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. I only heard one the first. I only heard myself the first time. Maybe I just didn't catch it. And then I only heard you, and I'm like, wait a second. I gotta start over.
Got it.
All right.
All right, so we are on to FERCog. So a
Pick
motion
one
to
number,
appoint James Lloyd as a representative and Brian Smith as an alternate representative, both for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint James Lloyd as a representative and Brian Smith as an alternate representative, both for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Franklin Regional Transportation Authority.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint John Rice, David Brule, and Kelly Loyne for each for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Golden Cane Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to appoint Jacqueline Boyden, Marty Garcia, James Loyne, Joseph Newton, Michael Schaefer, and Bretta Ivarez Petrasia, each for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Open Space Committee.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to appoint Glenn McCrory, Peter Sanders, and Thomas Duffy for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Public Works Feasibility Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to appoint William Bembury, Gary Betters, Paula Betters, Jacqueline Boyden, Leslie Brown, and Jean Galbraith for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2026, to the Senior Housing Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion to appoint Gary Betters, Armand Bouthillier, and Daniel Hammock for one-year terms starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, to the Veterans Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And I will make a motion to appoint Gary Betters for a one-year term starting July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026, as the Veterans Services Representative.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you for doing that work.
Do we have?
Yeah.
Both of you.
last, the ZBA? Is there one more?
Mm. I haven't gone back to the list, so I'm.
And then this one?
I think so. Go
I'll
for
make
it.
a motion to appoint Holly Fitzpatrick to the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 years, effective July 1, 2025, through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Good catch.
Thank you for catching that.
And I know Holly was at home watching, wondering where her name was.
She's actively working on zoning related
Right.
issues. So.
She's like messaging Brian going, what?
Yeah. Did I do something
What's
wrong?
up with that?
What happened?
Thanks for catching that. So there
Yeah.
was 23.
There was 23.
I wanted to check one. I just
I was reading
missed.
the actual list, not the motions. so.
Good job.
Did you think there was another one?
Um,
I
think we actually,
Yeah,
You think so?
I think there is another one that we missed. Nope,
Nope.
never mind.
Nope, the one I thought was missing is not. So in summary, that leaves remaining vacancies of 1 in the Board of Registrars, 5 on the Council of Aging, 2 on the Cultural Council, 4 on the Historical Commission, under the assumption of the outcome of the, wait, no.
If it's
It's
approved.
4 right now, it will be 2.
Yeah,
We anticipate it will be 2 after the STM if the change is adopted.
that's correct.
Thank you. 3 openings in the Public Works Feasibility Committee and 1 on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Correct.
And there will be 1 on the Capital Planning Committee because we do have letter of resignation from Peter Mallett from Capital Planning Committee effective June 30, 2025. So thank him for many years of service on the Capital Planning Committee, and that will then leave an opening. I believe that is for our community, one of the community member seats. So
That's correct.
it's not a finance or select board.
Right.
So we'll look for someone who's interested to join that.
Correct. And I believe we included that anticipated vacancy on the announcement that was on the back cover of the STM warrant that we mailed home.
Excellent.
So hopefully that went out to everybody's residence.
Excellent. And then we have review and potential appointment of Cable Advisory Committee members, which is going to go from fully vacant to fully full, potentially tonight.
Yeah.
And again, staggered terms, and we have 4 letters of interest. Or 4 interested parties.
4 letters and 3 interested parties. Is that right?
3 seats,
Or 3.
4 interested parties.
4, yes.
Not letters,
I'm
seats.
sorry.
Yes.
My apologies.
It's getting late. I
is
know.
getting late.
Oof, yes. 3 open seats, 4 interested parties.
That's correct.
Okay.
How quickly the tide has changed.
Exactly. Okay. So, other than the note about Philip Johnson having prior experience on this, there's no other information really from the other other interested parties, I assume.
Others communicated either in person after annual town meeting. Town moderator gave me the opportunity to just announce the opportunity. So some people approached us at the end, and others just sent an email with a very simple sentence or 2 that just said that they were interested.
Okay.
Philip is the only interested party. He's put his letter in 2 years in a row, and he served on the last iteration of the committee when we renegotiated your last franchise agreement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to appoint Philip Johnson as a member of the Cable Advisory Committee for a term of 3 years, beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2028.
I will
Second.
second that motion.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
you,
And
you cracked out the 3-year one.
Yep. Figured it brings experience, and it's starting from scratch right now, so it's really important, I think. So,
I agree. And had you not
To
made
help.
the motion, I would have.
Yep.
so
I mean, I have
Now
I have
to
the other
flip through
2 in
the-
mind that I was going to do, and you know, I just hope that there is one person that's not going to get it. That I hope they don't feel slighted. There's no
Yeah.
other contacts. There's no other information. So we just have to. It's like drawing a.
it's like flipping a coin and drawing
Yeah.
straws. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's not.
one of
nothing
them's going to get
personal.
left off, and there's
But
no.
as you just heard, there's many other opportunities
Yes.
if you are
There's a
interested
ton
in
of
engaging. So
opportunities.
there you got like 15 other seats you could
See a
show
need,
some
fill a
interest in.
need.
What's that?
See a need, fill a need.
I don't know what you're talking
If
about.
you have one, fire away.
Yeah, I was going to. I will make a motion to appoint Gerald Sykes III as a member of the Cable Advisory Committee with a term of 2 years, beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30th, 2027.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Any preference? Shall we flip a coin for the last one for 1 year? I mean, I have my
I have no preference.
If you have one,
I'm
go
just-
for it.
I make a
I'm
motion.
just happy we have
Yeah,
this much.
me as well.
Same.
I make a motion to appoint Sarah Vega Liros as a member of the Cable Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for your interest and welcome you to join other openings too. So review and potential approval of co-response clinical professional services agreement with clinical and support options. No update, right, since we spoke?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, as you guys can see in the memo, at the moment, while DMH had a supply again, you know, I mean, we're 3 years in and we didn't know if it'd continue. They did have a supply. I know they're hoping to fund these programs, but at the moment have not said yes, they can. So we are effectively do not have funding to continue it yet. We're trying to stay optimistic that that will change in the coming days or month, but we don't have any guarantee or any knowledge of that. So this is more of, unless you all have some other path to take, you know, we're gonna have to put it on pause on July 1 because there's no funding.
Right.
And then depending on kind of where we are with DMH and any feedback we get from them, I think in the next, 30 days or so as we cross over the end of the fiscal year, then I believe it would make sense to get together to figure out what,
Next steps.
if any, steps do we take to proceed and what does that look like after. And I think you were looking to see if one of us would take the lead in working with Chief on
Correct.
kind of beginning that process to bring back to the board if we don't get some positive news from DMH shortly.
If you all are okay with that.
So I think personally, I think it makes sense. I think, we aren't going to be able to take action and do anything right now.
Right.
Anyway, I would only maybe recommend that we bring it back on the 7th when we have Bill here as well to then determine how do we want to kind of break up workload
Okay.
and rather than decide whether one of us two takes it now,
Okay.
unless you
mean,
disagree.
You mean my motion to appoint William Bembury? Effective July 1, 2025 wouldn't work?
I mean, I don't think it wouldn't work.
Bill, if you're listening, it's
You
coming.
left him something more than just an open seat.
A little outgoing present for Bill.
But that was gonna be my recommendation
Yeah.
because we're not gonna take any action that soon anyway. So,
Yeah, we
got-
may have an update in 2
and
weeks.
maybe we'll have funding by then, and that's
Right.
great. I know that it sounds like they've been in communication even today, and we're like, we hope we're gonna hear something soon. So, we'll be able to tell you something soon. So, maybe we will be able to defer this at least another year, and then maybe be more proactive about planning for a contingency next
Right.
year, so that we're not reactive like this.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see.
So
Okay.
I'm going to carry this for your July 7th agenda.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
For identifying a member, obviously the topic, yeah, in
Right.
general.
Okay.
Yep. But right now, obviously, I know Chief has already been in discussions with the other towns that have been party and, letting them know that at the moment, it'll be on pause unless that comes through for July 1.
Correct.
Review of the Civic Plus proposal. So in some ways, there's a lot there, in some ways, there's not. So I guess I kind of, and I know Brian put together a memo there on it too. We'd be starting from what questions do you guys have, or what do you think of it? And maybe in summary, this is taking the website we have on a platform that's not supported anymore, that they're moving away from, and moving to a new platform, and adding in some missing pieces with permitting, moving some. This is the full package, right, including rec.
This is the full.
Yeah.
Yep.
So also moving some of what rec is doing elsewhere into the same platform. It may not be exactly what we envisioned or idealistically want for permitting and licensing and such, but right now what we have is we don't, and this is much closer to something, or much further down the path of a suite program that does the things that we need. I don't know if this will be our forever package, but it definitely is a lot better than where we are.
Right.
Obviously, it comes with a hefty price tag too.
Yeah, the question I had is, and maybe I missed it somewhere. I don't know if there was additional documentation, and I apologize if I missed it. The annual of 28,686.
Mhm.
How does that compare to what we are? What's the delta from what we're paying in? Because there's multiple different
Right.
platforms that are handling this now,
Right.
and I'm just wondering what the change would be. What's the increase?
I don't have the exact dollar, though I can get that to you this evening, but there is a slight increase on the rec software. I think it's approximately 2,000. In terms of the licensing is currently broken out between Select Board, Board of Health, and Town Clerk. So it is slightly more on the annual, though we already have budgets in all three that can handle that. But this would also allow us to bring in the Public Works departments and potentially fire
Yeah.
for additional permitting. So the capacity would be a little bit broader. The website increase is the larger increase. Your current payment is around $4,000 a year, maybe a little over $4,000. So that would be higher. But
That
we're
one's going
talking
up
about
to-
increasing the ability for residents and business owners, community members who are looking to do more online and expanding what they could do online. So yes, it's more, but I think the question that I've been trying to wrestle with is, are we expanding the service offering for those who are looking to do a little bit more remotely and not have to physically come into town hall or mail in their payments or mail in their paperwork to do that?
And to be totally transparent, I was only asking that for context.
Yeah,
I'm fully on board with seeing something like this happen.
right.
I think anytime we can go digital and allow people to have web access to all of the things at their fingertips. I mean, it's been a digital age for 15 years now, and
Right.
fully digital on almost everything.
Right.
This should be part of it as well.
We've had a couple issues because we've had some more online web services over the last 5 to 6 years, but we've started to experience some issues. So you all talked about licensing. Our current licensing platform is not available online.
Right.
So making that available was something that the team was looking for. In terms of our rec department, we've had some challenges with the way that the payments are being processed. So a lot of our families or residents who have been trying to process their online registrations have expressed some frustration and challenges with getting things to move from the platform into the payment system without losing their session. And people come scrambling into town hall to try to make their payment to get their session back. So trying to rectify some of those challenges with maybe a platform that's a little more cohesive. Right now we have different softwares talking to each other and trying to hand off a session. It seems that we're starting to lose, through that communication, we're starting to lose people. So this was really sort of predicated by the need to rectify the system that we're currently on for our website being mothballed. But it provided the opportunity to reassess these other systems that maybe were no longer meeting our needs and consider what the new opportunities were and have one comprehensive system that does it together.
Would your recommendation be to modify those various budgets that currently have some of those line items in there, to pull those out and have this paid out of one location? Or does it make sense to still parse it out and say, this is where the cost lies? I know we've made an effort to move in that direction where this
Right.
is where those costs are broken. Now, you could find that annual 28.9
Right.
if you added up these 6 line items on these 4 budgets, or whatever it is,
Yeah, I think the three of you with the FinCom over the last few years have had a lot of conversation about where the right place in the budget is for some of these items. And I think we started to have a conversation where IT became more of the umbrella housing, if you will, for things like townwide licensing for security, townwide licensing for Microsoft Office and those types of products. So when you start to get to a point where you're talking the town website, we've always kept it in IT because that's the umbrella service.
Yeah.
If you're starting to add more things into that, does it make sense to reallocate where the budget has broken out in the appropriations budget specifically and move that all to IT so it's one comprehensive service? I think you can make that argument.
Yeah, I think if you were to do that, we have the capacity now to at least show that, while it's in IT, you could attribute a certain percentage of each one of that for use within rec, for use within, if you wanted to give transparency about how do
Right.
we get to that. I don't know if you have to get to that granular level. The reason I ask is I think it would get very cumbersome to break this down into the number of licenses and how do you break, it just doesn't make sense. That's why I asked the question.
Agreed. I mean, I've got, all of these will renew on an annual basis, and then Bets and I already have a process for those things that have to be broken out to different departments, so I can do it either way. It really doesn't matter. But I think you all have been wrestling with where's that tipping point where it shifts into the umbrella service.
Licensing and permitting, to me, starts being, okay, licensing is 4 or 5 departments, and then, or permitting is, and then licensing is another 3 or 4. You're probably covering 6, 7, 8 departments.
Right, and then you talk
So
about.
at that point, all of those fees, however they break down, end up covering so much, and the website already covers all. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm leaning
it's
towards
very messy.
I'm leaning towards what is the value of the time to split it up versus
True.
just aggregating it and paying it out of one place.
So, to me, this sounds like, yes, it's an increase, but the value added exceeds the cost added. So in terms of these current licenses expiring, one question I have is, are they currently co-termed, as this would be, or are they sort of a la carte where different?
So all of these will be on the same schedule. In terms of our current website, it's already with this provider. So that would just be a transition into the new
So it
platform.
would be, and
So
so
it's
then.
rec and licensing, right?
Rec
Are
and
the two
licensing
that we
are
have
different
other
terms.
fees for, which expire at different times.
Correct. But
So
we're
there
going to
will
need a
be-
period of time for transition anyhow, so.
Okay. So then,
And this does incorporate, I mean, I think it was called out, but it incorporates this, what they consider a significant amount of migration from the current website that they would normally charge a significant premium for, that we've gotten bundled into it for the most part.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that down at $0. Just
Yeah, and it was like, I don't even know how much per 100 items, and we have 6,000 just in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would scale beyond anything we'd look at.
right.
And we stressed with them at length that was just period an unacceptable answer when they're moving the platform. So this was a compromise between, they can't just show it as doing it free, but we're buying into a higher platform level, then they can work with us on getting there. So
The
while
other-
we might be able to go chase down separate solutions that maybe do a little bit more, there's an overhead in that, and it's a lot harder, and there's some economy in sticking with the vendor too, so.
Funding.
So town meeting, the citizens approved a special article for capital improvements. Licensing was something that you all in capital and FinCom put forward, and that was approved. So there's 27,000 just in launching a new software for licensing. The rest of that annual renewal is in the embedded budgets that we just discussed.
And I think between the additional budgeted amounts for licensing that were planned, that are in our budget for FY26, right? So licensing in FY26 in the individual budgets is higher than we'd been spending, so it was accommodating for a larger licensing cost. The existing website had some capacity funding, not as much as the new one. Plus rec has lines for theirs.
Correct.
That's
So
what I
when
was
you add all
wondering.
those
In the
together,
aggregate,
I don't think we're quite there. We're a little bit short,
A little.
but it's not enough that we can't find it.
okay.
Correct.
That was the question is,
Yeah.
do
I think
if,
IT can find it if everybody
if we were to
can't
move on
together.
it tonight,
Yep.
then could we bridge that delta
Mhm.
fairly feasibly,
Yes.
not off by.
Yeah, we're not off by much, a few
Difference is a
thousand.
couple thousand.
So my recommendation would be to move forward with this, and then moving forward in future budget years to put this into the IT umbrella and budget accordingly, and make the adjustments in the other departments' lines.
Okay. I don't think they'll have concerns with that.
Okay.
I mean, obviously,
So
there's a couple
26, it
elected
won't
boards.
show that way. We can pay it out of IT and it'll be a deficit and we won't pay out of the others.
The only
Or-
challenge with that is some of it's living in the 600s or the 500s,
I was
so
going to say it might take another.
it may be
No,
one more
no, I
budget
mean
cycle.
in 26, IT, it could be a deficit in the IT line and the money left behind in the other lines, in the other budgets. And then in 27, we can correct it. We can't correct it in 26.
Correct.
Because we
unless
have
go back
to,
town
we can't
meeting.
move the
Unless
the
you wanted to
appropriated
hold a
funding.
mid-year special
Right.
town meeting to say we
Yeah.
made this change. 2 days before the special
No,
town
God,
meeting,
no,
and we
no,
want to.
no.
Yeah.
As long as you're going to be in attendance, I'll be.
I'll be there. Yeah, I'll vote twice.
So anyway, we will clean it up. It won't look clean until 27,
Right.
Right.
but we will move towards
we
what you
prepare.
said. We can move
Correct.
towards it, all being in one budget. Yes. My only comment, and I should have cut this earlier, Brian, because I know you and I have looked at this, is the 100% of the initial first-year investment is due up front. And I don't necessarily potentially agree that we should start paying the annual portion of that on day one, because the stuff won't be off the ground
Agreed.
and usable day one.
And I had that conversation with them today.
Oh, you did?
About the fact that
So
there's a
just
certain
wait on me.
capacity that we all have. And
Yeah.
we're closing a fiscal year and starting a new one. So they did say that they would work with us if we had to delay implementation, and therefore if we have to adjust any of that billing.
Okay.
Yep.
Like I'm personally, at least, of the initial investment piece, not the annual cost piece. Like if that's on signing, fine. And then if it's 3 months later that the actual term starts for the annuals or something, that's
Right.
fine too. I just don't think we should be paying up front on the annuals when we haven't implemented yet, because we're not using. We can't use the platform we're paying
Agreed.
for. So that'd be my only concern.
So the 5% on the is not part of that 28,686, if I'm reading that correct.
Go back.
The annual uplift.
Oh, that's just in years 2, 3.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but
So the 28,686 annual
is not
is
inclusive.
a year one annual cost that's
That's
embedded
correct.
in the 5841.
Correct.
The year two will be 5% higher than the 28,686.
That's correct.
That's what you're saying,
Yes.
and that is true.
So, yeah.
So year two will not be 28,686.
So the only
it'll
motion
be-
you're looking for now is to enter into this for the 50,841 and 50 cents
And a
Right.
2-year agreement.
and a 2-year agreement.
That's
Right.
correct.
Oh, did you want me to do that too?
Or acceptance of quote, blah, blah, blah.
I was going to
as-
say, yeah.
It's at the bottom of the
that's-
quote, page 5. That's
Yeah,
page 148 of the packet there.
I'm going to do that because then I'm not capturing any of it incorrectly. As long as Brian's good with that, because it captures the entire quote.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept the agreement with Civic Plus for a 2-year agreement as indicated in its entirety of quote number Q-95888-1. You want to effective
Don't
Oh,
think
if
we
you need an
can.
effective date.
Just
today.
initial investment. Or if
Okay.
you want to call
Yeah,
that
with the
out.
initial investment of 50,000, sorry, I didn't have it in front of me, $841.50.
And there's no need for an effective.
No.
I will second that motion then as is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Thank
will
you, gentlemen.
abstain, just
Yep.
in case, since it is IT related. Review of the Director of Senior Services Preliminary Screening Committee recommendation and discuss interview questions. So in summary, there were 7 applications. 5 candidates were invited for interview. 4 were actually interviewed. 3 were put forward. And 1 withdrew before this evening. So we have 2. And the final candidates are Dulcie McAndrews and Tracy Gaudette. Is it Gaudette or Gaudet? Because now I'm...
I believe it's
No.
got that.
Okay, thank you. Just don't want to mangle somebody's name. And then the screening committee had recommended some questions based on the results of theirs, right? And you were there for some of that, so I'm just
So,
paraphrasing here. But
Yeah, part of that, if I may.
yes,
Um,
please.
there were a couple of members, and I brought forward suggested questions. Some of them were reworked, some of them were consolidated, some put forward as is. And that committee did designate questions they thought were appropriate for their rounds, and then isolated certain questions that they wanted to put forward for our consideration, which are included in the package.
On number 2, what is in parentheses?
So that is, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Brian asked.
You beat me to it because I was going to ask. You had 3 of us that were
I
going to ask
almost
the
went
same
back through to
thing.
try to put them all back in there.
So that was a format that I have to take responsibility for. What I tried to do is formulate questions that were based on the essential functions identified.
Got it.
So that there was
Shorthand for.
a question that, at least one question in the format that would speak to each essential function. And some questions covered multiple
Got it.
essential functions, but that was.
And so am I to assume that these other questions also could have those same notations on it, they just do not?
We started with a very long list of potential questions that Jim had edited and included those EF references. And then the committee refined that list, maybe consolidated. So yes, they largely all tie back to the executive
Okay.
Somewhere.
essential
Yeah,
functions.
they just don't necessarily have the notation, right?
We deleted that because we thought that that would throw the candidates off during the interview process, wondering what EF means, and we didn't want to get into a whole explanation about it. So we did delete them. I just didn't go back to put them all back in. I apologize.
Well, you got
No,
the question
I-
from us, so.
You know, I'm glad you left the 1 because it allowed us to
like
know
it,
that
yeah.
the process you went through to get those 6 that are on there. And I'm sure the other 10 that
Yep.
were also asked went through the same exact process.
There was a large amount of work done in the question selection.
Yeah.
They're good questions. I thought they were very well done.
And so as I was reading these earlier, my assumption was that these 6 that are recommended were not part of your the pre-screen questions, only the 10 that were below.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, 'cause, I mean, I like the 6 on top. I think we should start with that as the basis, because I cannot stand it when we do a replication of the exact same interview questions
Oh,
that
you
they
don't
got.
want to revisit your first day?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, let's just pull up the transcripts and read it. So yes, I'm very glad that you came with some questions that were pertinent, that were not previously asked.
Are there any that were previously asked that we want to read?
Well, that's what I was just
Rewrite,
rereading those
revisit,
again
or
and see.
redo, yeah.
You know, and I think leaving the questions, having done enough of these interviews, if you're more than 10 questions, you're running into the window of time. That you have to give them some time to answer.
I would much prefer fewer questions with more developed answers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay if we stuck with those 6, and if there was at most 3 more, you know, leave it to 9. These are well thought out,
And then the questions for us, number 10.
which takes a while. Yeah, that's fine, you know. So just give me another moment while we read these again to whittle from 10 to 3, if I want to
I
add
have
any.
one, and I'm going to go through these one more time, I think is not in here, that I think would be good to add. to.
Okay.
So let me just go through the 10 again, make sure it's not take up one of those. Whoops. Shouldn't have tried to scroll or grab it and move it. That was bad. So 5 of the recommended is similar to 7, right? So we already have one that's
Yeah.
almost the same or similar. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're both open to a recommendation,
Yep.
then we can form it further. But the question about like how will you incorporate the future senior housing development into the senior services, and or how do you expect that would influence the senior service offerings and attendance? Trying to develop a little more development around that, but like we have this coming, right? We have this project right outside, and so how do you envision having senior housing right next door will impact the center, and how do you prepare to support and engage that population now next door, right?
It's an important question.
I just think it's a big project looming out the door, literally, and so like how do they, and if they're not aware of it and the work on it, then it'll be kind of a, now think about it and answer, but hopefully they are aware of it and are thinking about how does that influence, and maybe it's a good follow-up question to well, I guess number one, really, but kind of like, okay, your top three priority. No, that's not really. It's one of the other questions that I saw in the 1 to 10 that kind of the future of it.
I'm taking your thought and just writing some.
Yeah, I've kind of,
Stuff
you
down
can hear
and-
I've mulled a three or
Yeah,
four
yeah, you
different
mulled a few
kind
through,
of directions,
and I don't
but I
think
haven't really gotten to one.
I don't think this is there, but I'll take a stab at
Sure.
it. And it says, how will you incorporate the future services that may be needed when the senior housing development is completed, with the understanding that some of these services may need to be offered at a satellite location? And the reason I say that is this director I've heard Paula talk about, there's community rooms over there, and maybe some of these services, you don't have to have everybody come over here when you have ambulatory. They're right there.
Oh, at the new
place.
Oh, okay, I got it.
So that would be like a satellite location, using the same services that we offer in this building, but even for some people may have a hard time even just crossing the parking lot till we offer services over there, but not.
Maybe
Yeah.
can recommend not calling it satellite location, because that sounds like could be so
Yeah,
broad.
yeah.
And maybe instead of potentially
At the
utilizing
Within a campus setting.
or potentially utilizing community space at the housing
yeah.
and the housing facilities, or yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm open to
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, exactly.
I
It's
threw
kinda
that language down there just to show that
ways
it's
to-
services that we offer may have to happen outside of this building.
Mhm.
How we get there, I have no idea.
Are there others? Can always come back to it too. I don't
Yeah,
fully
I
form
think
them all tonight
so.
exactly,
I mean,
but finalize them tomorrow.
I didn't want to go too many. I like yours. I think it can be honed back in. I like to see the ones that have some financial, implication there. I didn't. The budget is you can do that, but the one that's more cumbersome and more telling is number 9, managing grants. While we
experience on that?
currently don't have a ton of staff members that do grant writing, if we could get more, that would be fantastic. That have at least knowledge on how to get one started and assist somebody in completing one, and yeah. So I'd like to see number 9 added back in. I'd like to hear the answers that they give for that.
Well, maybe just even rewording it a little, maybe for the sake of not repeating it.
Mm-hmm.
How about please describe a successful grant, and your experience in writing grants and your successes. or yeah, and how do you, or you can make it even, how do you, with your experience in applying for grants, how do you envision being more successful at getting grants in the future? Like, how do you do that? Because that's part of it. Like we've learned, right? Grants, just filling one out is one thing. Then learning how to get feedback on how do I do better, how do I be successful when it wasn't, is actually a lot more of what it's about, I think. And I feel like, kudos to Mariah for, at least to me, teaching me that piece of engaging with those people after you get no is actually maybe the most valuable part of it, and learning how to get yes next time or maybe be more successful. So, but I'm not putting it together cohesive questions as well at this hour as I.
Yeah,
Might have a
unfortunately,
little
though, we
earlier
only
tonight.
have this hour to get it done.
Well, we have 15 minutes tomorrow.
Plenty of time.
So here's something to think about that we can get more value out of our questions too. Adding in without going over is in the 6 that were reserved for us. Is there a way we could blend 3 and 4 and make that one question, which would allow room for an additional question because it's
Blending of 3 and 4 in the ones that you've already asked, or 3 and 4?
3 and 4 in the
Of the top 6?
Of the top 6.
Hmm.
And again, I think they're okay as a standalone question, but I think we could.
Well, I think we've only added 2 more at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about one that relates to the new senior housing development. We talked about another around financial experience or grant writing experience. Is there another that, are there others that you guys would like to see in there?
And then another question just to think about, if there's anything that you're considering re-asking from the preliminary screening round, is there a question not only that the 3 of you want to hear the answer to, but maybe the public wants to hear the answer to?
Well, that's what we're trying to do now. Is he came up with one. I said question number 9 off of the original
Right.
10. We reworked that a little bit, but talking about grants.
Yep.
And that's what we're looking at is those 10. Is there another one that we want to pull back
Yeah.
and redo?
Or another one entirely that hasn't been asked? It's fine too. I know we have obviously the application packets and things, but I almost look at the first one. I mean, leadership style is interesting to me, but I think a summary of kind of what's your background and such is a good opening question in general. And for if I'm in the public, I don't know anything about the candidates potentially. It's a starting point. But they're not going to have, their resume to look at, to refer to get that starting point. And maybe we could take 4 and bring it in there too. Please describe your professional background related to senior services and what drew you specifically to the interest of here and to this senior center and this position.
So you're saying take 1 from the preliminary screening list and 4 from the recommended.
I was
list.
thinking it'd be a way
Yeah.
to kind of put those together. Is it
Yeah.
Kind of, what is your background that, that you bring that makes you think you would be a good director for us, and what brought you to our center as your interest?
Yeah, I think you can drop the have you ever been there? It's going to come out in the answer.
Yeah, I think that
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Well, I have now. I was screened.
Yeah.
So we'll do the first part of that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that as an intro question.
Okay.
The other one that I actually was reading is number 5
In which list?
on the previous on the screening committee list. In part, the more so about the how. How would you market programming to them? The first part of that question leads up to the how would you market it to them. And I think it's important because, we market a lot of stuff through social media, we market through, paper around town, but love to hear somebody's ideas on how they're marketing to a very diverse population, some that do not have the same platforms or access. How do we capture all of them?
Right.
So if we were to
So
look at
focusing on
them,
the second part there.
focusing on the second,
So like how do you, if I may, how would you market the services and programming to diverse population, variety of ages, to ensure, to increase attendance and ensure that you reach, you're inclusive of all audiences, maybe something like that.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to throw this one out there.
Sure.
The first part of it is not a question. I think the first part of it is a statement. And it can
Yeah.
simply be knowing that our senior community center is an inclusive and welcoming facility to a very diverse population. How would you market programming to them? It's a statement of fact, like we
Yeah, yeah.
are. But
Yeah,
how are
this-
you going to market that?
Mm,
It's more about the marketing and not
yeah.
how do you make it a. It is,
True,
and
true.
you're going to continue to do that. That's the standard. How do you market that statement? How do you get people here knowing
How do you
that?
how do you reach that population?
So I think just reworking that one as a statement in the beginning.
Mhm.
Brian, you got some typing fingers going right there? If I give you a,
There's been a lot of go back and watch 9:40 p.m.
you ready? Go back and watch 942. Go back and watch 942. And it's in knowing that our senior / community center is an inclusive and welcoming environment to a population of older. No, I'm sorry, I missed something here. My writing is awful. Knowing that our
With a diverse population.
yeah, knowing that our senior community center is an inclusive and welcoming environment with a population of older adults.
Diverse. Did you miss that one?
Yeah, I
Drop that
did.
one, or
It's,
do you
no,
wanna
it's
keep it?
it's there. It's
Okay.
diverse, yes.
Got it.
And then you just finish it off with, how would you market your programming? No, you don't have to put your. How would you market programming to them?
Services and programming, or just programming?
Both services and program to them.
Got it.
And again, if these come back tomorrow at, what are we meeting, 5:45?
Mm-hmm.
We've got 15 minutes. If we come up with a word here and there we want to tweak it, we have
Right.
that time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you have a little bit of license too, if you're reading through them and going, okay, a little more cohesively, this is what, you've heard us talk, so I don't think it's
A
personally.
lot of
at
it's
least for mine.
gibberish. So at this
If you want to
hour.
make it make more sense, that's fine. And clear look at it in the morning.
So, I mean, again, that was number
So
5.
so then one we talked, or a new number one we talked about. Please describe your professional background related to senior services and what interests you specifically about the Erving Senior and Community Center.
That's the new question number 1. Question number 2.
What are your top 3 priorities in the first year?
Yep.
Or-
3 remains the same. How will you increase participation?
Yep.
Yep.
3 or 4, what draws you to working in a small town setting like ours? And well, that now sounds a little bit like one.
Well, no.
No,
it's a continuation of it.
Yeah, but coming back to it midway is a good.
Yeah, I like those.
See how that pulls in again.
Yep.
And how do you think your background fits
And
in?
so 4 is already incorporated. Can you describe how you would handle? Yeah, you keep it. I like it.
Yep.
Food insecurity. Yes.
Well, is it an understanding of, or is it? How do you? I almost would like to reword that a little bit. Like, how do you view the issue of food insecurity in the community? And how might you address that with the resources of the Senior and Community Center?
Yes.
And then
If you want to do the revamped number 5.
from the second set.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then add in the one that you talked about. We have not come with a language, but
Yeah, but like, how do you envision changes and engagement once the senior housing
development is completed.
development is complete? Thank you.
I think we just leave it just like that.
Yeah,
I don't think you have to get
because we want
less on the more is
less is more.
less on the question and more on the
Yeah, how to envision?
not leading questions, open
Right,
questions.
Right. Just period.
Yep.
Okay.
I like it.
And then wrap with the financial on the question. So, so please describe your experience in writing and managing grants, and how you I don't know, maybe it's just that, or how you
Sometimes
like increase effectiveness, but yeah.
Sometimes those come as 2 separate questions.
Right.
You ask about the history, and then based on the answer, you have the ability to
the follow
say.
up.
The follow-up can be
Describe your experience with writing and managing grants.
But I
And
think
then
the
we can
follow-up
follow
is
up with
during, this isn't the question, this is just my thoughts.
Sure.
Unless they're batting 1,000, they've been denied for grants in the past. If they've written grants, they've been denied at least once.
Yes.
So,
Well, maybe that's the second part.
that's
Is
the
that what you're
second
getting
part
at?
is,
So please describe a situation where you've not been awarded a grant and what you
And-
did to try to
and
be more successful next time, or
Something.
what you learned from it.
what you learned from it, period. And let them come back with it. Because I think that touches on what
Please
we're
describe.
talking
Yeah,
about.
please.
It's-
Right.
Do they say,
Please describe
well,
it.
nothing, I just submitted the same application next year? That's,
Well, that's an answer, but it's not the ideal answer.
Yeah.
Einstein's definition of insanity.
right, yeah. All right, I think that works.
Okay, and then do you have any questions for us? Right?
Yep. And for the candidates at home watching this right now, feel free to work on your answers tonight.
Because you've heard them. What's
You heard them here first.
Well, you know what?
with the other 10,000 viewers.
Right.
If they aren't doing their homework,
I'd be
Okay.
surprised.
and if knowing that
Absolutely.
they don't come with very thoughtful and developed answers.
Yeah.
There's been time, so absolutely.
Okay, I said what I said.
Yeah. No, I've read both of
And 10 minutes
the
of 10.
all of the documents that came through, and I have very high expectations, and it looks like a very difficult decision at the end already. and that's without even seeing the interview. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed. But that's a good problem to have.
Absolutely,
We want that
you know.
problem. So thank you. Anything else on that? We'll revisit the final question list at 5:45 tomorrow.
Yep, have a few minutes
Plan to
tweak
kick
it.
off interviews around 6.
Yep.
Okay. And then the last, I believe, second to last item is review of the final report submission for Mass Trails Grant, the Blue Heron Greenway feasibility.
Brian, I have a question
Study's missing, but study's part of it.
for you.
Yes, sir.
How, and I ran through this a little bit, how has this varied from the one that I sat through not that long ago in this very room?
So you're talking about back in January.
Yes.
So they originally presented their concepts based on field observations, regulatory requirements, things of that nature. Collected a lot of feedback from we had a really good attendance.
Yes.
A lot of our friends in Wendell participated and provided some great, not only lived experience in that section, but some thoughts. Obviously, there's a concern about over-construction and overbuilding in some of these areas, and then just the difficulty with some of the terrain. So they have tried to speak to that concern. I know that Green is doing their best to try to balance compliance with the regulatory requirements of shared use paths in some of those pieces, with acknowledging the rural character and the material choices. There was a question about paving versus using crushed stone or a hard packed material that's pervious. There was also a question, just in presentation, there was like a phasing of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and did that somehow imply an order of operations, or was there a different order? And just having the conversation with the residents present and who was in support of this, actually all hands went up and to say that there was support for a project and to make these connections while balancing all the concerns that they expressed, right? There were certain sections that made sense to them. The connection between Arch Street and the connection with Farley made sense. The connections in Farley to Erving side along Route 2 made sense. The connections to Wendell Depot, while interesting, seem concerning and more challenging because of the topography, right? So a lot of those things have now been, the feedback's here. I also have a submission that came from one of the Wendell residents who's on the open space committee. They would also like to submit. It's already gone to the state, giving their concerns and their thoughts about the Wendell side of this project. So that will also be going with the submission.
I was in looking through these documents. Some of the concern was when you say overbuilding, just to clarify on what that was, a lot of that was the requirements for the keeping vehicular travel lane with,
Right.
a lane separating it from pedestrian and bike travel lanes,
Right.
going in both directions with 12 feet. So now you've got what appears to be a trap rock or TRG dirt road that's 10 feet wide, one lane at best, and with little pull-out areas, to a 35-foot swath with a retaining wall embankment in order to hold the earth back so
Right.
that it doesn't come down. So those were some of the things that we saw in the first iteration of this. I'm not seeing as many of those in there, so they did take those into consideration.
And I think the appropriateness of those applications along Route 2, that makes complete sense. And that the application that you'll see for that talks about creating a separated buffer, maybe with trees and a wider grass belt area separating the travel lanes from this shared use path, right? Even doing something on Bridge Street or Maple Street. Ideally, we'd have separation, but Bridge Street really doesn't allow itself for that. So trying to figure out a path in Erving on our residential streets to allow for this to work with maybe the shared use of the travel lane for vehicles with the appropriate blazes and signage. But that looks very different in those more urbanized settings than it would, say, in the unmaintained section of Old Farley Road or Blue Heron Road, whatever some people call it, different things. there's a section that's been maintained to date, and then there's a section that has not been maintained. The idea of building that up with retaining walls doesn't make sense. Maintaining it in some fashion like the existing maintained section seemed to be the preference of the residents, wanting to see something in very similar construct, similar width, similar materials, something that really balanced the natural state that's out there. And I think those are all really understandable requests and considerations. It makes sense. So I agree. I think they tried to tone that down. With that being said, Green also didn't want to put forward a feasibility study that proposed a project that couldn't be permitted or wouldn't receive support from the state. So that was also sort of a balance that they were trying to strike.
Other questions or comments?
Trying to review it now, I didn't really have an opportunity to review it in depth, so.
It's not time sensitive to complete tonight. We can look at it.
Brian's like, yeah,
Grant
it is.
closes on June 30, so.
Yeah.
What do we got June 30? No, kidding.
I'm going to reread it with the team, see if there's anything else that stands out. The team that worked on it for Green for us, they're very thorough and they put a lot of work into this. So I do believe they've caught most of the feedback and tried to incorporate it where it made sense to them. But we'll go back through it one more time to try to see if there's anything that stands out to us.
I mean, the minimizing of the impact is probably the one thing that, throughout I think is one of the most important things, and, understanding what we're trying to do isn't to create a bunch of asphalt, wide, 36-foot wide swaths through everywhere. So
Right.
I think that's maybe the biggest focus that I share with what you brought up, Scott.
Yeah, I mean,
It looks
I
like
like
they've
the,
tried to do that. So.
They did, and they took that in. I still have, and that's not to say that I'm not in favor of this moving forward, because I think as you move into this is not the final plan. Because there's alternatives and there's recommendations, so this is not to
It's
say
just a
that.
feasibility study.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So
Right.
this is not
Long way
a
from-
plan. It's not that we're saying that this is what we're gonna. This is absolutely what's going to happen. This is
I'm very glad you said that.
Yeah.
So for 2 decades, this idea of creating connections has been mentioned, at least in Erving open space and recreation plans.
right.
And there's been community conversation at different times about this. The point of this project was to assess, is there any viability to any of this, and what are some of the challenges? What are the opportunities? And where's the public feedback leading us? It's just meant to be a representation of all of that in consideration of the regulatory requirements of the engineering principles and the things that would need to be done to even make this happen, right? That's what this is meant to be a presentation for. This is not meant to say we have an approved plan and we're going to permitting
Right.
and construction and
And I wanted
here
to be
comes a
very
project.
clear about saying
That's
that
not-
for those that would look online and see what our materials look like and see that study and see this presentation from Green
Yeah.
and say, this is what they're building. And so I want to
That's
be very
not-
clear.
Right.
That-
That's a good point.
correct. This is meant to
Give some guidance.
give some guidance, and if there is even one section of the different sections that were talked about that the towns of Wendell and Erving jointly said, yeah, I think we want to try to achieve that. And this is what the engineers found. Here were the considerations, here were the opportunities, here's the challenges, that we'd have a focal area and sort of like a these aren't construction plans, so I don't want to make it sound like the project's designed, but at least a start, a foundation to build that work off of and focus our efforts. But there's no, by submitting this, there's no commitment that either town is building anything.
And submitting,
Mhm.
next steps.
So the submission with proof of all of the expenses that we've done to date, the town has paid for it. It's a reimbursement grant. Is a submission of the final report and a copy of all of our invoices and our in-kind match for our work on it.
And so I guess the part that people are really should be looking at is it's down near the bottom. It's one of the last pages. It is the feasibility assessment, block, and it talks about is it feasible? Yes and no. What are the costs associated with it? And that can drive future discussions about,
Right.
where do we go next?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you're looking for just an acceptance of this,
Is it
so they
okay to
can
file?
they can file it.
And I should also I know we've talked about it different times, but the three of you in the same room at this table haven't discussed this in many months. So I should just mention that not only did we have that, again, and I'm very appreciative to everybody who attended because they gave some really great context in January, that community meeting, but we had several stakeholder meetings with DCR, Mass Wildlife. The MassDOT team met with us to talk about not only the whole project, but specifically the Route 2 bypass and/or Old State Road as options to connect with Erving side. So we had a lot of stakeholders who met with us in the team to get their feedback and considerations. And so this is not only just food for thought for the towns of Erving and Wendell, but if the MassDOT team picked up a piece of this as they're looking at paving jobs or the next Farley improvement that they're planning 2 years from now, is there work that can be incorporated into any of these projects that helps them look at whether or not the complete streets for Route 2 can't be achieved in the current layout. Is there another opportunity? So.
And to look at the different sections, just because they're numbered 1 through 5 does not mean that section 1 gets done
Before
first.
5, yeah.
No,
They're just broken out
Parsed
for
by projects.
based
yeah.
on
It wasn't based on
Similarity.
priority.
No.
It was just we needed some definer. You could have
No,
done
and I'm
different
happy.
colors.
I know they got a lot of feedback,
Yeah.
both positive and negative that day. I'm glad to see that they
Yeah.
incorporated as much as they could.
Yeah, I think it was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 was the original presentation.
Yes.
And they changed that because
Yeah.
it's not
It's
an order of
not
not a
operations.
phase, it's
Right.
sections.
It's
so,
sections.
And I'll just sort of take a step back from what I said earlier about this and having a better understanding of what this represents. In
Yes.
principle, I am still very much in favor of this. The document I looked at and doing the scan that I had the ability to do, it didn't really, the pictures weren't worth 1,000 words that I would have hoped, and I didn't think it represented some of that feedback we got from
Yeah.
our own community and from our neighbors across the river. But
Yeah.
in terms of filing this and keeping the ball moving forward to optimistically develop something that does capture what our community and Wendell are looking for, then yes, I'm in favor of filing this. And
Okay.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
You don't need
Refer back to
anything-
10:02.
You don't.
I'm just going back to.
You don't need anything that formal because it's just okay to file.
I'm just looking for your permission.
So I
File
heard
it.
something and so
I
moved.
will
so
make a motion to file the study conducted by
Is it
Green
Green?
International.
Green International as presented, and
Second.
authorize Brian to take any actions relative thereto.
well said.
My
And a
second still
is-
stands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Last but not least,
Treasurer? No.
yes, I have authorized approved the payroll warrants, the 25th payroll warrants dated June 18th, 2025. The payroll warrant aggregate amount of $235,640.40, and the benefits warrant an aggregate amount of $77,689.88. And I'll make a motion to approve the 26 accounts payable warrant for FY25 in the aggregate amount of $440,747.92 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I miss anything?
I don't believe so.
See you all tomorrow at 5:45.
With that, motion to adjourn at 10:04 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. We'll be back here tomorrow at 5:45.